Welcome to Riviera Rats, a Palm Door podcast. I am Greg.
And I am Bill.
And today we are talking about the 1988 Cannes Film Festival competition, the year that Pelle the Conqueror won.
Conquered.
It's going to be a long episode.
Yeah.
Bill, how are you doing?
I'm good, Greg. I'm good. It's lovely to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. And I'm looking forward to doing today's, even though I know we have a lot to say about the movies. But I don't know. I was excited about recording today for some reason.
Well, it can't be because of the movies that we're talking about. You probably just want to see my face.
You know what? 1988 is a very exciting year for me. I know that you were only 2, so you were busy losing your virginity. But I was 11, and it was the first year that I became aware of movies for grown-ups. I remember I wasn't really into movies as a kid. We didn't go that often, and whatever I saw I liked, and of course I saw things that were appropriate for me. But 1988 was the year I discovered things like Working Girl and Dangerous Liaisons and The Accidental Tourist, and even a few selections I think from this festival. And I became aware that there was a wider world of movies out there for adults, and I was fascinated by adults as a kid, so I wanted to know what their secrets were, and being a stupid kid, I thought that the movies was a way to find that out. So it takes me back to a happy place to think about this year.
3 minutes in and you've already mentioned Working Girl, as I had predicted, so yep. I'm closer to my bingo.
Yeah.
And in 1988, I clearly have no memory of the period, but my earliest memories of watching movies are getting them from the local Becker's, when that's what the convenience store was around the corner from our place. And I remember we rented Beetlejuice multiple times because I loved the VHS cover so much. And that's the movie.
I rented that multiple times as well.
It's the movie I've probably seen the most from this year. But since then, I've caught up on a number of those titles you just mentioned.
I also know what you do at clubs on a Saturday night, so I'm going to guess that there's a lot of years that you don't remember very clearly. Greg?
Bill, before we get talking about this festival, 1988, let's take a moment to give congratulations to Mr. Sean Baker.
Oh, yes, that's right. That happened since we last recorded, because I think actually our last episode came out just after the Oscars aired. So on the episode, we were talking about our predictions, and you were worried that he might go home empty-handed.
That's true.
And he not only didn't go home empty-handed, he went home so handed he could barely hold his hands up, because he had 4 Oscars in his hand. He set a record for the most Oscars won by one individual for a single film, which is incredible. And also proves my point that the Oscar voters aren't watching a lot of movies. But I love that movie, so I'm not sorry that it won.
I'm not sorry either, because I truly believe it had the best film editing, if that's the most contestable of the 4 wins in that group of nominees.
Well, editing is about rhythm, and that movie that movie holds you.
The whole screwball section of the movie is mind-blowing, even on a second viewing. And Sean Baker deserves props for giving 4 incredible speeches when Adrien Brody couldn't give one.
That was really tough, because Adrien Brody is, in theory, what I want a tall, big-dicked man to be, which is not very good at speaking. But but then you give him an award, and since he can't actually do what we love him best for on that stage, he has to speak. And it hurts that he not only set a new record for his speech, but on top of that he didn't say anything.
No.
I think he was overwhelmed by the moment, quite frankly. I think that the emotions he was feeling about having been in a sort of career dip between Oscars, I think it affected him more than he thought it would, or at least his thoughts on that hit him a lot harder than he thought they would when he won. I think he thought, I've got this, I don't need to prepare anything. And then it all went out the window when his name was announced and he was overwhelmed. I think that's actually what happened. But I think he's also proof that no matter how little of a chance you think you have, write something down.
Absolutely. And then one other thing that needs to be noted, we have an exciting jury president this year.
We do. Actually, it had been announced the last time we did this episode. We did an episode, and I had completely forgotten about it, and so had you, which is that Juliette Binoche is our president, and the slate will be announced by the time we record our next episode.
So excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
And as I think about her announcement as the jury president, I'm reminded that when we recorded our first episode of Riviera Rats, we were just finding out that Greta Gerwig was going to be the jury president. So congratulations, Bill. We've survived a year of this.
I'm surprised Binoche hasn't done it before, but my guess is that she was probably asked numerous times and always had to say no because of work commitments. So
yeah, that would make sense.
The stars probably finally aligned. There's no way that it took this long after Isabelle Huppert doing it that they would finally ask Juliette.
Or that she does it after Vincent Lindon.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Bill, won't you tell us about the festival?
Absolutely, Greg. A few things to clear up from mistakes I made in the last episode. For some reason, we thought King Henry VIII's last wife's name was Anne Parr. I don't know what was... I studied English, and I studied these people, and I forgot that her name was Catherine Parr in Firebrand. Ooh. Also, I forgot to mention, when we did this section, we forgot to mention the year's awards for 2023, including that the Oscar went to Oppenheimer and The Zone of Interest, that the Golden Lion went to our favorite movie, Poor Things. That's a joke. And that the Golden Bear went to On the Adamant. So, just wanted to get that out of the way. But for this year, we are in 1988. To get this out of the way up top, there's no Isabelle watch for 1988. She actually won Best Actress at Venice this year for The Story of Women, which is still one of her finest performances. Une affaire de femme.
So I know we have sound effects when there is Isabelle watch. Do we have sound effects when there is no Isabelle watch?
No Isabelle watch. No Isabelle watch. No Isabelle watch.
Wah, 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 wah. I was doing the dying Rolls Royce from Who's That Girl?
No tricks. All right. So just so that you don't think we're alone in this, when it comes to the slate of films being presented in competition at the Cannes Film Festival in 1988, the article I read by Carrie Rickey in the Philadelphia Inquirer, I don't know if you read it, I sent it to you, it's fine. She quoted someone saying that an American festival goer at the festival screamed, Cannes makes me feel like Patty Hearst. I'm sensory deprived. I've been locked in a dark closet for 2 weeks. So that's what these movies made someone feel like. Notable events at Cannes this year included the fact that porn star La Cicciolina appears on the red carpet, bare-breasted, holding a teddy bear. She's probably not as well known in North America, but I remember around that time that she was always being reported on in Greek magazines, like in European magazines, and I would see her in Greek publications. She was rather notorious.
She ever worked with Rocco?
I don't know. I don't think he goes that far back. Does he go back to the 80s?
I don't know either. I thought he did.
I don't really care that much about straight porn stars. Carrie Rickey writes that most of the movies selected for this year's competition were not so much on the cutting edge of contemporary film as in the dull middle. The three themes that she feels that all these films revolved around were the horrors of European colonialism, ambitious unconventional biographies, and films mythologizing the American landscape. For her, the best movies that she saw at the festival were two that were not in competition, which is Hotel Terminus, the documentary by Marcel Ophels about Klaus Barbie, which I watched recently, and it is 4 hours long, and it is magnificent. And a little movie called Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, which would soon be released by Orion Pictures Classics, which, when Orion folded, became Sony Pictures Classics, with whom its director, Pedro Almodovar, continues to have a beneficial business relationship. She writes that at the ceremony, the clips selected from the winning films seemed chosen for their morbidity, a montage of suffering, strangulation, and overdose, provoking titters amid the black tie crowd, and that it was an award ceremony so unintentionally slapstick that it resembled a Monty Python parody of the Oscars, including the fact that Clint Eastwood accepted the technical grand prize for Bird, and he thanked his cameraman Jack N. Green, without realizing that the technical grand prize was actually cited for the film's soundtrack, not its cinematography. Oh, typical of these ceremonies at which no one knew exactly what they were getting awards for.
Yeah, I can't disagree with a lot of that. It is a dour grab bag of movies.
Yeah.
Not keeping with what we think of Cannes Film Festival movies being.
Well, and when they do, I don't find they're great.
Yeah, there's that too. Like
Yeah.
we do have a couple of. I think we have one or two satires in here. We have some formalist moments,
Yeah.
but they're not high water marks in that regard. But a lot of it's quite middlebrow. It was strangely Venice Film Festival like.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would argue that the film that wins is the movie that reaches the most at being a Cannes film, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I love it. But we'll get to that in a second. And I will have more to say about the ceremony and about Carrie Rickey in a bit. But first, to give us context for what was going on in 1988, besides the fact that I was 11 years old and awakening to the reality of movies for adults, Greg, will you tell us about the other competitions this year?
Of course. Here are just some highlights of notable movies from 1988 or movies by notable directors that were in the other competitions or out of competition. In Un Certain Regard, as Bill mentioned, we've got Hotel Terminus, The Life and Times of Klaus Barbie by Marcel Ophuls. Still not seen it. I will get around to it. I love a totemic documentary.
It's on Canopy as well. I got the DVD from the library, but you can also watch it on Canopy.
Has it received the Kino Criterion Arrow treatment?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got, and I know you put this in the outline because you know how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
We've got The Raggedy Ronnie by Bob Hoskins.
Yeah, which I've never seen.
He can make me Raggedy Ronnie.
Just so you listeners know, guys like Greg always say they're into Bob Hoskins while dating guys like Mike. That's just the most bitter I'm going to get today. But anyway, go on.
I can have everything, or try to.
We followed you into the health clinic. You can definitely have everything.
Because starring in our Palme d'Or winner was not enough, Max von Sydow had a movie of his own in Un Certain Regard called Katinka.
Yeah. Also, both of these films I never even knew existed. So
yeah, It's Happening Tomorrow by Daniele Lucchetti is in the Un Certain Regard competition. We've talked about Lucchetti once before, and we will again. And you like his movies quite a bit.
The ones I've seen I've liked a lot, and I also included this because I didn't know he went that far back. I don't know too much about him personally, so...
And then I just drew this into the notes as well. We have the sci-fi movie by André Zulawski on the Silver Globe, which is supposed to be as good as Possession. Out of competition, we've got The Big Blue by Luc Besson.
Yeah.
Luc Besson is coming out in the mid-'80s around the same time as Léos Carax and the Betty Blue director.
Yeah,
yeah.
Besson is like a dumb version of both of them, but... He makes visually arresting movies, and The Big Blue has Jean-Marc Barr in a Speedo for 2 hours, and it's a really dumb movie that is worth it just for that.
Is it a Big Blue?
I would hope so. He's really sexy.
And there's a term, it's not enfant terrible, it's something else that describes this group of 80s brats. Do you know it off the top of your head?
I don't.
Okay. Also out of competition, because he's not been too busy with his own film festival, we've got Robert Redford with The Milagro Beanfield War.
Which wins an Oscar.
Oh, really? What did it win for?
Best Original Score.
Oh, really cool.
For Dave Grusin.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, but it's been a long time and I don't remember it. It's a favorite of my friend Heather's. Yeah.
And then we've got Pauline Kael's favorite, Willow by Ron Howard.
Willow, has it been so long?
Kaya! Willow, calm down. We must consult the bones. The bones tell us nothing.
Should it have told me something about me as a kid that I was like, who is that witch? She is fabulous.
And then we had a special screening of the first installments of Histoire du Cinéma by Jean-Luc Godard. This is his 10-part, probably 10-hour essay-style documentary saga. I've seen it. I can't say I remember much of it. It kind of looks like the Image book.
It's boring, and you have to pretend to everyone that you liked it because otherwise you'll get lectured. Is what you're saying?
Oh. I wish it was as noble as that, Bill. I pretend to like Jean-Luc Godard without anybody forcing me to.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm that low. In Director's Fortnight, we've got a favorite movie of yours, Distant Voices, Still Lives, by Terence Davies. From budding film director Ho Xiao Xian, we've got Daughter of the Nile. Winning the Camera d'Or, we have Mira Nair with Salam Bombay, a movie that launched her to stardom and was nominated alongside Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown for the Best Foreign Language Film Oscar.
Yeah, which had lost to our Palme d'Or winner.
Yeah, and another one of our films in competition was also nominated.
That's right.
We've got Sour Sweet by Mike Newell, ahead of his 90s fame for Four Weddings and a Funeral. Mm-hmm. And Stormy Monday by Mike Figgis.
Which I haven't seen, I don't think. I'd mix it up with Liebestrom, which I have seen.
I'm up and down on Mike Figgis.
I think everyone is. I think because Leaving Las Vegas was great, we all forget that he made mostly mediocre movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Winning other awards this year at other festivals and shows, we've got our Best Picture winner, Rain Man. And Best Foreign Language Film went to our Palme d'Or winner, Pelle the Conqueror.
Pelle The Conqueror.
Can you say that again?
I don't think I said it right. Go on. Anytime I meet a Danish person and I try to tell them things that I know in Danish, they just look at me funny. I'm sorry to all listeners. They're the least friendly people on the entire planet, as we know from this movie. And they just look at me and they look like something smells bad. And they just shake their head at me. That's happened to me multiple times.
Golden Bear went to Red Sorghum by Zhang Yimou. This is part of a trilogy with Judu and Raise the Red Lantern.
Yeah, all of which are excellent.
Still not seen them. I'm behind on that generation of Chinese cinema.
It's what made me love Chinese cinema. So it's
And then the Golden Lion went to The Legend of the Holy Drinker by Ermanno Olmi.
Just a great film. It's not a great film. It's a good film.
Bill, won't you tell us about our jury?
Absolutely, Greg. So the Master of Ceremonies for the opening of the Cannes Film Festival was Jean-Claude Brialy. Is that his name, Jean-Claude? Brialy. You know who this guy is, right? He's the other one in A Woman is a Woman by Godard. The little Twinkie one.
Never seen it.
He's in Claire's Knee. You haven't seen any Romare. You've seen him for sure. He's in early Chabrol. He's in Les Cousins. And I think he's in Le Beau Serge. Anyway, very cute, very Twinkie, openly bisexual. And works until the very end. I'm sure you've seen him in his later performances. So he's the Master of Ceremonies. He's the one introducing the jury onto the stage, one by one. He first introduces to the two actresses on the jury and then is like, isn't it lovely to have beautiful women on the stage? None of us will be bored. Like he's hosting a Donald Trump beauty pageant. And then he forgets one of the jurors and is like, did I forget someone? Hold on. And he walks off stage, consults with someone. Who did I forget? Oh, sorry. I forgot this guy.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So I love the Cannes ceremonies for the fact that they're always a little bit of a shit show, if not totally a shit show. I don't know if it's because they're put together quickly or because no one cares that much. I mean, they don't have billion-dollar advertisements going on between commercials the way the Oscars do, so
no.
The pressure's not the same, and also everyone's always more relaxed about everything in Europe. So, anyway, I
always figured that they just put all the money into the palm itself.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But he introduces the jury and finishes it by inviting Sandrine Bonnaire to come on stage and to announce the Cannes Film Festival is officially open. You know her, of course. She's in La Cérémonie, among many other films. She's very young at this point. And she's
around the time of Vagabond, right?
Yeah, like 3 years later. Mm-hmm. And she's wearing this terrible 80s dress that looks like when you force a tomboy questioning her gender status to put a dress on. Like, she looks so out of place, as if someone just threw it on her 5 minutes before. Or like when you were forced to wear a dress to Sunday school. Like, that's what she looks like.
Totally. Dress up for family dinners.
Correct. So she declares the festival open. Anyway, but to get to the actual jury. Our jury president is the great Italian filmmaker Ettore Scola. He died in 2016. He was actually born the same year as my dad. He was eligible for the Palme d'Or many a time. He never won it. He did win Best Director and Best Screenplay at separate festivals. He directed A Special Day, which I can't wait till we get to that year. A Drama of Jealousy, which I loved, also known as The Pizza Triangle, I think is the name of it. One of the funniest movies. He won Best Director for Ugly, Dirty, and Bad. He also did The Family, and then you and I discussed him when he did The Night of Varennes in 1982.
Which I will go back and rewatch.
Who cares, Greg? Who cares?
I didn't speak kindly of it when we talked about that movie, but...
And the world heaves tears.
No, it needs to be said, the movie I always watch last.
Yeah.
for the recording gets the most.
I know. You and I have been working on our time management skills with this show for a year now. And I'm still figuring things out. I don't know about you.
Most certainly.
On the jury, we also have French filmmaker, producer, and actor Claude Berry, who also has passed away in 2009. I know him best for having directed Jean de Florette and Manon des Sources, Manon of the Spring. But he produced a lot of films as well, including L'Enfance Nue, Naked Childhood by Piala, as well as All About My Mother by Pedro Almodovar.
Oh, I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah. William Goldman, the American author, who died in 2018. He is the writer of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and All the President's Men, for which he won Academy Awards.
And the writer of Misery, Bill. You dirty birdie.
Oh, he wrote the screenplay for that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he also wrote the novels Marathon Man and Heat, which were turned into films, and he wrote the novel The Princess Bride, which he turned into a film as well. Mm-hmm. He also, I think he's the one that claimed to have written all of Good Will Hunting. I think that was him.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. He initially wrote an article about being like a ghostwriter on it, but then he said, no, I actually wrote the whole thing, and that the rest of it was a Miramax marketing ploy to sell it, which, I mean, I don't know if it's true, because the boys have never confirmed or denied, but it also, what would we put past Harvey Weinstein at this point in terms of selling movies? Among the two actresses that I was mentioning is Nastasia Kinski, who wore a really ugly pink curtain dress to the announcement of the jury, but one that probably looked great in 1988. She is, of course, the German actress, daughter of Klaus Kinski, although she says she never really knew him and always thought she was terrified of him because he was a monster. I know that her sister says that he sexually assaulted her a lot, and Nastasia said she was not his victim, but was his victim in other ways. And at this point would have been famous for films like Tess, Cat People, and Paris, Texas, and is great. And also made Big Lips popular as well. The Bee Stung Lips, that was something she was particularly admired for.
This will reveal my age. The first thing I ever saw her in was Your Friends and Neighbors.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know that I'd watched a lot of her by the time I was a teenager either, because it wasn't movies that were really gonna, no one was gonna show me Paris, Texas when I was 6 years old.
That's fair.
George Miller, Australian filmmaker, Oscar winner for, of all things, Happy Feet, but more famous for directing the Mad Max movies and The Witches of Eastwick, is on this jury. Robbie Mueller, the cinematographer of Breaking the Waves, and who also frequently is most famous for working with Wim Wenders and Jim Jarmusch. He died in 2018. He is on this jury. The director that Birelli forgot to invite onto the stage was the Argentine filmmaker and producer Hector Oliveira, who is still alive. He was born in 1931. I've seen the film Funny Dirty Little War, which I think is probably his most famous. David Robinson, the British film critic, born 1930, still with us, critic for the Financial Times, The Times, Sight and Sound. He wrote the official biography of Charlie Chaplin, among other books. He is a legend in the world of film reviewing.
Have you read his stuff?
Not that I'm aware of. Maybe I did it many years ago and I forgot. It's not a name that sticks. The other actress is Yelena Safonova, Soviet actress who starred in Taxi Blues, Winter Cherry, and Dark Eyes with Marcello Mastroianni, which I still haven't seen even though I've had it on my computer for 1,000 years, and was his third Oscar nomination. And last but not least, we have the French composer Philippe Sard, who was nominated for Polanski's Tess, also did the music for The Tenant, Quest for Fire, Nelly et Monsieur Arnaud, and most recently, The Princess of Montpensier.
Oh, I loved that movie. Mm-hmm. A lot of boob touching in that movie.
Yeah. All right, Greg, who's in the competition this year?
Yeah, let's start with our winners. Our grand prize went to A World Apart by Chris Menzies from the United Kingdom and Zimbabwe. The movie, that is, not the director. And an interesting point, when Nastasia Kinski handed the award to Menzies, which was a scroll, she made a point of saying, "For me, this is the best film in the festival." The movie went on to critical acclaim at the end of the year. It gained recognition from the National Society of Film Critics, although I don't know if they gave it any official awards. It placed second and third in a number of awards. I
feel like one of the groups gave it Best Director.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like one of the main three or four.
Yeah.
And this is sort of kind of like a capstone for a great decade for Chris Menges. He had already won 2 awards for cinematography.
Well, he won the second one this year. It's the same year.
He won for The Killing Fields and he won for The Mission, right?
Oh, you're right. Then who? Oh, he didn't win for Mississippi Burning? Or is that Peter Biziou?
That it's the latter. Because
okay. Who did the cinematography for A World Apart?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Menges would go on to be nominated 2 more times, one of
Right.
which was for The Reader.
Yes, he mostly was a cinematographer, but he did direct a few things.
Worked a lot with Ken Loach, including on Kess.
Right. Yeah.
I have his other nomination written down here. Michael Collins is the other one.
Right. Yeah.
And we can talk about the performances when we get to it. But Bill, I want to know, what do you think about this movie?
I really love this movie. I loved it a lot when I first saw it, 30 years ago, and I was happy to catch up with it. I understand all criticism of it. There is, Carrie Rickey writes of her concern about the fact that it's another white savior movie, and it is, and the 80s is replete with white savior movies.
Yeah, well said.
And I understand that, although she writes that it's a white savior narrative in which its unintentional moral is that the worst thing about apartheid is that it inconveniences the lives of white radicals. I think that's a bit of a harsh judgment, given that the woman was assassinated. And I don't think that's true. But I understand the concern with that perspective because there are so many of them made, including Mississippi Burning this same year. Mm-hmm. This is a movie written by Sean Slovo about her mother, whose real name was Ruth First. They changed it to Ruth Roth in the film. What are they?
Roth.
Yeah. And in reality, Ruth First was a anti-apartheid activist. She and her husband were. They were both South Africans of Jewish, like their parents were Jews who came from Europe. And then she was exiled after her prison sentence and was assassinated by a letter bomb arranged by one of the police chiefs of South Africa. I mean, these people are out of control.
Yeah, wild.
And apartheid in South Africa are particularly a concern of many a movie and in the 80s. I particularly remember it being talked about a lot, and this movie is made while the regime is still in power. It's banned in South Africa. It doesn't really fall apart until, the early 90s is when Mandela is released from prison and all that stuff. This movie isn't quite I'm Still Here, but it is in that vein of this, private experience of a much grander theme. You have this story of this young woman who is coming of age, understanding the world around her, and having to deal with the fact that she has a mother who puts her personal considerations aside in order to save the world, and how she comes to appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And I love how it doesn't feel forced, even though this movie comes close to it, but this movie feels unmanipulative, and I love the performances, and we'll talk about that in a second because it's another award that it wins, but yeah, and given that they shot it in Zimbabwe, obviously they can't shoot in South Africa, and the black actors are speaking Swahili, which as far as I know is not a South African language, but
no.
At least that's according to my internet research. I don't know if that's actually true, but there's just so much about this movie that really works. It unfolds so beautifully.
Yeah, I think style is what rescues this movie in retrospective. Really try my best to not judge it in contemporary cultural political terms. Mm-hmm. We talk about this a lot, how we get tired hearing people anachronistically critique movies for their progressive efforts, in the time that they're made.
And in the ways in which they fail. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So hearing Carrie Rickey's critique of it piques my curiosity because I think, oh, well, maybe it wasn't all that resonant in the time it came out. All that said, I do think she does lay it on thick. I don't think this movie is about how inconvenienced the white communists or accused communists are. Mm-hmm. My issue with it more is that it's so admirable and virtuous that it plays it kind of safe because all of the central characters have the same morality.
Yes.
So, it would be more challenging and more deep. Mm-hmm. And it often looks like it's more deep than it really is because it's beautiful and things are shot from atypical angles and he doesn't play it up for drama. It's like you said, it's not filmed manipulatively, but the character of Barbara Hershey is already on the right side from the beginning, and so doesn't make for more drama.
Well, yeah, because you could explore the fact that she's a communist who believes in changing the system, but who, much like many of her neighbors, has black servants in her house. And just because she cares about the fact that they don't get to spend time with their kids doesn't change the fact that they live the same lives as all their friends who work in the other houses in the neighborhood.
Which reminds me of Mike's critique of Roma, which is the whole movie is Alfonso Cuarón saying, I swear my indigenous maid likes me.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and like, I'm not shitting on that contradiction, but it is interesting to explore that contradiction. The fact that this place resembles the American South in many ways, which is that you have people making these divisions of life supposedly for health and societal purposes. We don't share drinking fountains because it's not good for our health. But you still let these people raise your kids and cook your food.
Totally. The contradictions are so there.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I would love to see that tension. I would love to see how she has arrived at her morality and where her political activism shows its contradictions and where her internal tension is.
But I think that the point of the movie is to be from the little girl's point of view, and maybe it doesn't commit to that enough for you to not need that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it either would have worked better as like a triptych or like a 3-part movie with 3 different perspectives, or just centered on the child. We'll talk about Jardima in a moment, but I do find this movie is part of a tradition of social issue movies that are centered on the perspective or worldview of a child or a magical invalid. It's in the tradition of Italian neorealism. So in that regard, it's not like doing a lot that's new, but what really works with this movie is how it looks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's much, much better than Cry Freedom, the Richard Attenborough film that came out the year before with Kevin Kline and Denzel Washington. Mm-hmm. I have never seen The Power of One. That's also considered from that era of movies made on this subject. It's like my best friend John's favorite movie of all time.
It's my sister's favorite book.
Right. Yeah. And John used to drive everyone crazy with the soundtrack. He used to listen to it all the time.
Yeah.
More recently, there's also a John Borman movie made in the early 2000s, I think, called In My Skull or In My Country, and then the original title was Country of My Skull, with Samuel L. Jackson and Juliette Binoche as an Afrikaner. It's not good. And then there is an unforgettable documentary that must be seen by everybody about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called Long Night's Journey into Day, which is incredible. And also a lovely documentary called Amandla, which is about the song revolution, basically, the revolution in song of South Africa's freedom. And then there's there's an enjoyable police thriller called Zulu with Forrest Whitaker and a twunky Orlando Bloom, who at one point wakes up and goes to see who's in his house holding a gun completely naked, and he has the best ass of all time, and I think about that scene all the time. So it's worth watching for that. And a film so on this argument about white savior narratives, in 2013, there's a film that I watched for my article about the Berlin Film Festival that year that I'd never heard of before, called Leila Fourie by Pia Marais. This is an excellent film about a woman trying to get a job and showing that even though apartheid is over and the regime is officially disbanded, there is still an issue with a country allowing people to get ahead who were denied opportunities in the past. And then this film was written by Sean Slovo, as I said, based on her parents. She later wrote a movie called Catch a Fire with Derek Luke as Patrick Chamuso, who was an anti-apartheid activist. Also with Tim Robbins as a South African police officer. And it's sort of, it could be seen as her way to sort of make a film in which she is favoring the perspective of a black African. Mm-hmm. And in that film, actually, her sister Robin Slovo plays their mother. And Robin also produced Morven Keller and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And and then the little sister, Gillian Slovo, wrote a book called Red Dust about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which is made into a film with Hilary Swank and Chiwetel Ejiofor that played a tiff and then never went anywhere after that. So these ladies they're very much involved in keeping the memory of their mother alive. Tragedy, of course, that Ruth First, like many, many, many people in that country, did not live long enough to see their efforts come to fruition. And then also this film is Hans Zimmer's first score as a solo composer.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
And it feels like he's tipping his hat to Missing because he's basically doing Evangelis Tangerine Dream Score.
Yes, without a doubt. That's the most 80s thing about this movie, too, is the music.
Winning our jury prize is Krzysztof Kieslowski for a short film about killing. Fuck off, Bill. Stop it. Not tossing your head side to side. It will do.
It'll do.
We'll clean it up in post-production. While Kieslowski had been known in Poland for movies like No End and Blind Chance, this is really the movie that makes his career take off. And it's an expansion on one of his 10 Decalogue shorts
Yes.
for Polish public television.
Even though that doesn't air until after this movie comes out.
Yeah, I saw that because when looking up movies that I'd pick as my Palme d'Or, I wondered when the Decalogue came out, and it's actually later.
Yeah.
So,
And he expanded two of them into features because the short film about love is the other one.
Yeah, so Decalogue 5 is expanded into a short film about killing. Decalogue 6 is turned into a short film about love. And the Decalogue is 10 shorts based on the 10 Commandments. Decalogue 5 is based on the commandment, thou shalt not kill. And Decalogue 6 is based on the commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery.
Right.
Kieslowski would be back again with even better movies in 1991 with The Double Life of Veronique.
My favorite.
Which won Best Actress for Irene Jacob.
I could watch that movie every single day.
I mean, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous. And it looks a lot like this movie, and I don't know if he's working with the same photographer.
I don't remember. It's Sławomir Idziak, who was later nominated for an Oscar for Black Hawk Down.
Then it is the same guy.
Yeah, Red is shot by Piotr Soboshinsky. But, Kieslowski always had a look. His movies look like Kieslowski movies to me.
Yeah, he's not afraid of a gel.
Yeah,
and he'd be back again in 1994 with the ultimate of his Three Colors trilogy, Three Colors Red.
The ultimate of his career as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. And for which he would be recognized with Oscar nominations.
That's right. And I saw an interview with his producer who said that they went to the Oscars and they were bored out of their minds because they're like, the show is so long, but they had booze at their seats and they just drank all night.
I mean, from the guy who made the Decalogue, that's a bit rich.
Yeah.
Although I suppose you can break it up into 10 viewings.
Also, is there anything more Polish than being born with a heart condition and becoming a chain smoker anyway?
I have to tell a funny story about my relationship to this movie. So when I'm 22 years old in my film undergrad, I am hungover almost every day. And I'm hanging out with a group of brats who all like to drink cheap booze and watch art movies. I remember drinking a 40 of Max Ice on a warm couch, like in the sunlight, and watching Man of Iron with one of my friends, Chris.
Yep.
And on one hangover, my friends Heather and Karis and I watched a short film about killing. And then we proceeded to make a giant pot of like 4 boxes of white cheddar macaroni and cheese while forgetting to turn off the menu. So the score to a short film about killing was playing on the menu over and over and over again for like over an hour until we realized we'd been making mac and cheese to this morose soundtrack. Bill, tell me first of all, tell me if this is your first time seeing the movie or not, and then tell me what you thought of it.
No, I'd seen it before. I haven't seen all of Kieslowski, but I have seen quite a few because I'm a huge fan. I have been for a long time. I wonder if this movie would have struck me better had I seen it in the time, because he just outdoes himself so much with other films that it makes this movie feel small by comparison. I think it is really good. It's an interesting concept, of course, this idea that our bodies are all sort of connected to one soul, and there's a feeling that humans create codes of morality as sort of an afterthought to actions that are inevitable. Mm-hmm. You don't get a lot of psychologizing about this man who kills this other man and then he is executed, and there's not a lot of debate about what's right and wrong. It's sort of spontaneous that way. And apparently the portrayal of capital punishment was so powerful that Poland declared a moratorium on it for 5 years after this movie was released. There were no state-sanctioned killings because of how graphic it is about his execution. It's a beautifully shot film. I don't know. His movies are wonderful, but he leans harder into the sort of metaphysical after this, and he does it in a way that very few people have done as well as he has. And so, the mysteries of magic of Double Life of Veronique are unparalleled. I think even in his own career. And so I don't know. I was happy to watch this again, but it's not a movie I'll revisit.
No, me neither. Twice was enough.
Yeah.
I do like the green gels and the shadowy frames.
Yeah.
I think the choice to show the whole movie through beer goggles adds a eerie effect of societal decay.
Yeah. But it also still feels like television, even though he expands it to feature length, and I'm surprised that it won a jury prize over at least one film I can think of in this competition.
Well, I think we're thinking of the same movie that should have been in this winner's roster.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think that the message of the movie, the movie is anti-capital punishment, and it already does that before we get to see that the main character who's on death row is a tortured soul who lost his sister as a child. That just kind of... It lays it on thick. I don't need his humanity explained to me to know that he doesn't deserve to get killed.
Yeah.
Just showing his murder by the state would have been enough to indict it. It's like showing the torture scenes in Zero Dark 30, which is basically a pro-CIA movie. But I'm sure you feel the same way that I do. We walk away thinking, well, that was a lot of torture to basically get the tip off from some guy who wasn't even a terrorist.
Well, don't assume what I think, Greg.
No, Bill, you're a foregone conclusion. Yeah, anyway, I think this is a great introduction to a rising filmmaker, and as we said, he goes on to make way better things, and then he dies.
Yep.
Winning Best Actor is Forrest Whitaker for Bird by Clint Eastwood, about the life of Charlie Parker, specifically his struggles with mental illness and substance use. This is a movie from a period of time when Clint Eastwood is starting to rebrand himself as an auteur. Though he had started making movies in the 70s, I think he really starts to... Would you say he gains more of a profile in this decade?
Well, he becomes a respected auteur and more than just an entertainer in this decade, because this is his first movie to win significant awards. It wins an Oscar, it wins him a Golden Globe for Best Director, and then it wins at Cannes, so,
And, as you wrote here in our outline, it's the first Eastwood film to win significant awards, and then a few years later, he wins his first Oscar for Best Director.
And he's nominated for his first Oscar for Best Director, for anything in 92, yeah.
Eastwood had been here before with Pale Rider in 1985. He'd be back again in 1990 with White Hunter, Black Heart. Again in 2003 with Mystic River, a movie that has not been treated kindly with time, but which I still like. And Changeling in 2008.
He's also the jury president the Pulp Fiction year.
Yes, and word from behind the scenes is that he was basically what's the term in court or in legislature when you
veto?
No, not veto. He basically filibustered until they picked Pulp Fiction.
Correct. Yeah, he just kept making them vote again.
Love it.
Yeah.
Are you taking notes, Pedro Almodovar? I'm going to keep going back to that. I think this movie is a suitably jazzy experience in terms of its style and narration. It's not a
the
typical
fact that he has flashbacks within flashbacks. He tries to replicate the feeling of improvisational jazz by making an improvisationally plotted jazz biopic. I think this is a really respectable movie. I think that it avoids a lot of terrible cliches of biopics. It features the things I love most about Clint Eastwood's movies, which is that they're very no muss, no fuss. Everything is just the facts.
Yes.
For all that in real life Clint Eastwood is known, he's a conservative Republican and blah, blah, blah. But his movies, a woman like the one we have in this movie played beautifully by Diane Venora, who is like ballsy attitude-y, is treated like a real person who just exists. She's not, it's not a movie about the terrible woman who took a good man down, He treats her with a lot of respect. He also treats Charlie Parker with a lot of respect as someone who is in the situation he's in without blaming anything I don't know. It's a movie about a tragic person, but it's not a tragic movie. Again, it's a very admirable film. It is too long and it's not easy to sit through. I hadn't watched it in like 20 plus years, and I was kind of dreading having to sit through it again, and then I did. And again, there's a lot I admire about this film, but I don't find it an easy watch. It's also his favorite music genre. Clint Eastwood is a huge jazz guy, which is partly why he makes this movie, and he also composes most of the scores for his own films. He's a music guy, so, you know.
Yeah, this was my first time watching this movie. I feel like watching it a second time would be like going back and rewatching Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's a lot of hospitalizations. It's a lot of overdoses. It's mostly withdrawals, actually. And withdrawals, for our listeners, my bread and butter is made off of supporting people through withdrawal symptoms, and they're really uncomfortable. They're really devastating. They make people contemplate suicide. And you really feel that from Whitaker's performance. So I understand why they gave him the award.
Do you? I don't know. I don't come away from this movie with an impression of him in any way. I love him in his Oscar-winning performance. In general, you know that I'm not a huge Forrest Whitaker fan. He is very unattractive. He has
you don't like him in The Crying Game? Mr. Frog, you poisoned me!
He's got a wet mouth, and you know I don't like that. Philip Seymour Hoffman had the same thing.
But how do you feel about Slavoj Žižek?
Wet, drippy mouths. It's so untidy, and I don't like it. I don't know. He's just not the takeaway for me for this film, but, you know, whatever. Good for him. I mean, fine, he won.
I mean, she's the takeaway more than he is, if we want to give him an award.
She was way more the takeaway for me. And I appreciated seeing... Did you notice how cute Sam Robards was at this point in time as one of the doctors at the beginning? That's Lauren Bacall's son. Yeah.
Oh.
Lauren Bacall and Jason Robards' son. And you also have a very young Anna Levine in this movie, sometimes known as Anna Thompson. She's the magician's assistant from Desperately Seeking Susan, among many other things. Michael Zellniker plays albino Red Rodney.
Have you looked up the guy in real life who he plays? Because I need to know if this guy could pass as an albino black man.
No, I haven't, but I'm sure that it was probably similar to what we have in the film. Diane Salinger is really great in this movie as the Baroness who is with him in his last moments. She's also in The Morning After.
Is she the mom of Oswald Cobblepot at the beginning of Batman Returns?
So. Yes,
that's
amazing. That's her. Yeah, she has a very striking look, and you can't imagine her being in anything that's not like based on a Dick Tracy comic strip. That look that she has. But yeah, I love Diane Venora as Chan Parker, and then after this, she's in Heat, which she's also really good in. And Michael
can you say that title again?
Insider.
What's that movie that she's in?
Heat?
Never heard of it.
The straight bro movie that Greg loves and watches all the time.
Just like Clint Eastwood is one of Bill's bro corners, Heat is one of mine.
Yeah, but mine's way better. This movie comes out a couple years after Bertrand Tavernier's Round Midnight with Dexter Gordon, which I like more. But I do like this film. Although, and I'll try not to get into too many details to bring everyone down. But as you know, someone very dear to me died last year. He was a beautiful young man haunted by his demons. He did not die of a drug overdose, although his drug problems led to him dying. He was at a friend's house. He lay down to take a nap. And he didn't wake up. And it was his birthday. And our friend Amy said, you should do something nice for yourself a year after he died because he died like a day before his birthday. And you should do something nice for yourself. And then I just ended up being at home, and I said, okay, tonight's the night I'm going to watch Bird. So on his birthday, I watched a movie where a drug addict falls asleep on a woman's couch and doesn't wake up. So happy birthday to my sweetie pie. Yeah.
You just don't learn a lesson, do you?
I don't learn lessons.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Best Actress went to Barbara Hershey, Jodie Mai, and Linda Mavusi for A World Apart. Which we just mentioned had won the Grand Prix. Mm-hmm. We tried our best to not talk about the performances because they deserve recognition on their own. First of all, Bill, do you believe this Voltaire-style win was deserved? And then what do you think of these three performances?
Well, I mean, Jodie's really good.
She's so good.
Especially for a child star. And for someone in her first movie. She's very, very good. Had she won it on her own, that would have been fine. Mm-hmm. I love Barbara Hershey's performance in this film. I love Barbara Hershey, and I feel like no one's ever given her the right... I don't know if it's because she's too beautiful or something, but like, In the 80s, she should have had the career of Jessica Lange and Sigourney Weaver, and she kind of did, but she never really did. And I just think she's great.
She had the belt for Hot Jewess until Rachel Weisz came along.
She totally did. She won the previous year at Cannes as well for Shy People. She's the only person to win consecutive acting awards, and she's in a small category of actresses who have won Best Actress twice, including Vanessa Redgrave, Helen Mirren, Isabelle Huppert, and whoever else I'm forgetting. And so she's really great. Linda Mavusi's really great, but of course the part does not really give her the opportunity to do much more than she does. It's a really cool win. This is like pretty much the only movie she ever made. She's actually an architect who went on to win an award for designing the Apartheid Museum in South Africa. So it must be a cool thing to have on her shelf. And I'm glad she's there because I think what they're doing is representing the full range of experiences in choosing these three women for this award. But the two different generations, as well as a white woman and a black woman from this South African film. So I fully agree with the choice, even though it's a shame. It's a shame that only two of them could have won on their own.
I think you said that perfectly. I don't contest that. The performance by Jodie Mai blows my fucking mind because usually child performances that get recognition and get awards are children being precocious or adult like even Anna Paquin for The Piano. But how Jodie Mai is able to tap into the actual emotional turbulence of a child, I have no idea. Like when she's crying at her mom saying like but I'm your daughter, like I don't like I'm not our maid's child, I'm yours. And that like little fit she's having, I can picture the little girls in my life, my nieces, talking to their moms like that. Yeah,
she's kind of pathetic, and it's wonderful.
She is pathetic. Yeah, it is wonderful.
And when they go to fancy dress parties and they give her these hairstyles of old women, because that's kind of what you did. There was there were no teen styles or children's styles. You just like got your hair done like an old lady, and it just makes her look so much sillier.
And I like her. I admire and actually relate to her mixed relationship with her friend, who she'd soon be separated from by the friend's father. Yeah. When her friend refers to one of the waiters as boy.
Another example of this pathetic system, and like South Africa is not going to be singled out as being the only place where colonialism is evil, because we know that it's all around the world, and we live in one country where it's also been an experience. There's a particular way in which it's expressed and codified in that country that it always blows my mind whenever I see movies set there. But you have this belief system in the way that everything should be run that you think is so great that makes you be that mean to a little girl, and you think that this is the way you should be living. Yeah. And that it's also so fragile that you can't even just be polite to a little girl whose parents are people you don't agree with. Like it just, the childishness of it is amazing.
It's petty for sure.
Yeah.
And I just thought like that scene when I was watching it, I was thinking it doesn't have to go to lengths to explain it, but there's 11 and 12 is around that time when kids start forming their tastes, but also when they start really exercising politics and in the messiness of it and try to navigate their friendships through their developing politics. I remember running away from friends when I was 13 years old because they were drawing swastikas on a playground, and there was just like a no feeling kind of taking over me, and that I was reminded of that watching that scene.
But now you prefer to date men who cut swastikas into your flesh. Things just come full circle.
No, Bill, that's not what we do. I shave my head to the skin and then they pee on it.
Right, great. So glad our families are listening to this show.
Best director went to Fernando Solanas from Argentina for Sur, or South. We unfortunately were not able to find this movie, which is a shame because Fernando Solanas is he was awarded, but outside of this festival, he's a celebrated Argentinian director, most famous for the third cinema classic, The Hour of the Furnaces. And he would be back again in 1992 for The Journey. And remind me how you say that in Spanish?
El Viaje?
La Viaje.
El Viaje, I think. I actually found this movie on Amazon on DVD, and so at some point I'll bite the bullet and buy it, and we can do it in our makeup episode someday.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Here are 4 other titles we were not able to source that were also Rand's. L'Enfance de l'Art by Francis Girod from France. King of the Children by Chen Kaige, whose films we've talked about before on this pod. He'd be here again in 1991 with Life on a String. He would win the Palm along with The Piano in 1993. You can go back and listen to that episode. He would be in competition with Temptress Moon in 1996. You can go back and listen to that episode. And he'd be back one more time in 1999 with The Emperor and the Assassin,
which I saw at TIFF. And King of the Children is easy to find, but I could not find it with subtitles. So if you are I believe, Mandarin speaker, you can watch it.
Yes, and I remember feeling victorious when I found it. And I said, haha, I found it, Bill. And you said, Greg, that's Life on a String.
Yep.
It's King of the Children is what I'm looking for.
That wasn't one I'll lord over you. That's a mistake I've made too. The journeys we go on to find these films sometimes really take us places. We get turned around in the dark. We get lost. We get confused. I get it.
Also not found was Fürchten und Lieben by Margarethe von Trotta from West Germany, or Love and Fear. Von Trotta was here before in 1986 with Rosa Luxemburg. She made another feminist biopic of Hannah Arendt. I've seen none of her movies. I would like to. And she's married in real life to Volker Schlondorf.
She was, yeah. I believe they've been divorced for a while. They made a movie together called The Lost Honor of Katharina Blum, which I really like. And I liked Hannah Arendt. I liked her film Rosenstrasse as well.
Also from West Germany, we have The Passenger, Welcome to Germany, from Thomas Brasch. And Brasch had been here one time before with Engel aus Eisen. I don't know a lick of Portuguese, so I didn't even attempt to watch Os Cannibais, or The Cannibals, by Manoel de Oliveira.
I don't speak it either. For some reason, I decided to just go for it. I found this movie without subtitles, and I'm like, what the hell? Manoel de Oliveira's movies they're always, I find a lot of them really hard to sit through. He's an interesting filmmaker. Of course, famously, he lived to be 105 and directed films until the end. And,
wow. And 4 of them would be in the competition later on.
Yeah, and a lot of them are like, they're feature length, but it's just 2 people talking in like 3 different rooms the entire time. And sometimes it's really boring. Sometimes it's kind of elegiac or something. Like sometimes I like being sunk into the quiet rhythm of the room that he puts me in. It depends on the film.
Makes me think of your description of him just there makes me think of Pedro Costa.
Yeah, I think it's probably a similar thing. Although I think I've only ever seen like one of his movies. And they're particularly great to see in movie theaters. So anyway, Os Cannibais is actually a film entirely sung in opera about a love affair between 2 aristocrats. And I feel like I understood mainly what was going on, despite the fact that I don't speak Portuguese, whether it's spoken or sung. But I can't say that I loved it either. I thought it was kind of a slim experience. But, it's interesting. It's his first time working with Leonor Silveira, who is in like all of his movies from that point on. So it's notable for that. But yeah, I don't know that you missed anything.
On to a movie that was a delight to watch for my first time. Chocolat by Claire Denis from Cameroon in co-production with France. Denis is widely celebrated as one of the greatest living directors, but has only been in competition one time since, with Stars at Noon, which I recall you did not like.
No, I love Claire Denis. She's actually my most exciting celebrity encounter that I've ever had, despite the fact that I've met Isabelle Huppert. Meeting Claire Denis was like the highlight of my life. My friend took photos of me with her that were all blurry, and that's okay. She was really funny, really sweet. Because I bent down to take a photo with her. She said, no, I make myself tall like you. She was just a really cool gal, She's a genius. I mean, I think she's an absolute genius. She's one of my absolute favorite filmmakers. I love her movies so much. Chocolat is one of the most extraordinary film debuts I think that anyone ever had. She spent the 80s as an assistant director on Paris, Texas, and Down by Law, and then strikes out with her own film. It's inspired by her own childhood growing up in colonial Cameroon. Her father was the magistrate that you see in this film in what was then French Cameroon. They're in Mindif, which is the north end of the country near Chad. And then her father actually stayed there. She and her family stayed there for a few years after it became independent. Her father helped them set up the first government radio station. So he was well liked. You get that impression in this film as well, that he's not sort of at odds with the world around him, despite being, a colonial. This film is so beautiful. It is so beautiful. It's shot by Robert Alazraki, although her camera operator on this film is Agnès Godard, who would go on to be her cinematographer on her subsequent films. It's actually more narrative oriented than a lot of her later films. She gets a little artier later on in the most wonderful way. But you still have this sense of who she is as a filmmaker. Her focus is on sort of this detached observations of actions and gestures, minimal dialogue. She's famous for her focus on objects. I just really love this film. She would go on to make a lot of cool stuff. And then, of course, in 1999, her film Beau Travail is the most critically lauded film of all time, according to some measurements of that. And it is probably her masterpiece. I mean, it's such a good movie. So, yeah, I was so happy to watch it. I've watched this movie. I've watched Chocolat, which, please don't confuse it with the Juliette Binoche classic of 2000.
Sorry, what did you call that movie? A classic?
I love Chocolat. I get that it's not a great film, but I love that movie. Unrefined cocoa nibs from Guatemala, good for awakening the passion. You obviously don't know my husband. You've obviously never tried this. My
ex-brother-in-law was from Toulouse, and he loathed specific movies that represent, like, the twee representations of French culture. He hated Chocolat. He hated Amélie.
Who can blame him? I mean, I get it. Especially Chocolat, where everyone speaks English with Frenchy French accents. Yeah. But I love it. I think it's charming and good to the last drop. But anyway, Claire Denis' Chocolat is a movie, I think I watched it maybe the 7th or 8th time for this show, because I studied her in film class, so I watched it many times for my essay and my exam, and I've never gotten sick of it. I love it so much. Comparing this movie to A World Apart, I think this one more successfully shifts our point of view from that of its child character to her mother. Yes. And it never occurs to us that is happening. We just all of a sudden are following the mom, and we're sometimes viewing Proté from the mom's desiring point of view, from her perspective. And who can blame her? There's something particularly smart about how Proté is framed not as a sexual object, but as a desirable subject. Yeah. Movies at this time either make the choice to play the racial other as sexually potent or a submissive archetype, or in trying to dignify them, they remove their sexuality altogether. Right. So they just, like, they neuter them in order to make them virtuous. This movie establishes his character, his personal boundaries, his playfulness with children, his sense of his own integrity, his observations of his workplace, but also appreciating his beauty for what it is. Like, it's a fact that he's beautiful. Yes, absolutely. He's also so good. Isaac de Bancolé is such a presence. Mm-hmm. And she, of course, goes on to work with him many times after this. And, of course, last year we watched him in The Brutalist. Brilliant actor. He's so beautiful in 1988. That was him in The Brutalist. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah. You didn't recognize him? That's so cool. Yeah. No, but I mean, he's older. He still looks the same. He's just not as, like, trim, I guess. But yeah. Yeah. Marvelous actor. And I think this film, especially when comparing it to A World Apart or to the colonial films in this competition, which Carrie Rickey chooses this movie as the best of the Euro-colonial movies in the competition. She's right. And she's absolutely right. It captures also the tension of, because her family are not shitty people, but they do still have black servants in their house. Like, she captures that tension really, really well. Also shows it from the point of view of the servants as well. And then includes these, like, random supporting characters that are just, like, these mad additions of plot, like that young hippie dude who's just, like, pure chaos. Oh yeah. Like French Lauren Dean. Yeah, totally. Yeah. You just want to find him hot, but he's just not. But no, and that one cook who can only make Yorkshire cuisine. So good. Yeah, and that or English cuisine. And then the coffee plantation guy who's such a brute who just can't keep his voice down no matter what. It's incredible. Yeah, just like little observations like that. Yeah. Go a long way in letting you telling you what this movie's really about. Yeah. And then we don't get like a satisfying conclusion for Proté's character. A lot of people think that he's one of the guys at the airport at the end, but he's not. and it's because narratively we want to sort of finish the story in some way. But yeah, and then the music as well. That African Marketplace number at the end is I've had that on a shuffle for like 1,000 years.
Oh, I should go find it. I recall the music choices in the movie being apt, and the device of us going back in time from her revisiting the land should be that should be corny. It's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But Claire Denis is never corny. And again, she's made some movies I didn't like, especially the last two. I don't know, for some reason I don't know why. I'm sure she'll still make a great film. I didn't love High Life that much either, even though I appreciated it. But like, give me Chocolat, give me Friday Night, give me White Material, which I think is a masterpiece as well. Give me
35 Shots of Rum.
35 Shots of Rum. Give me any of those. Fuck, I'm a happy man. And Bastards I liked a lot too.
Peter Greenaway, in his second outing in the competition, wins an award for artistic achievement, and we will get the specific phrasing. He'd been here before with The Belly of an Architect. He'd be back again in 1999 with 8.5 Women. And then one more time in 2003 with The Tulse Looper Suitcases Part 1, The Moab Story. First of all, shout out to the recently passed Bernard Hill and Joan Plowright, who are both incredible in this movie. All of the cast in this movie are doing a fantastic job, including Juliette Stevenson and Jolie Richardson, one of 2 Richardson daughters in the competition this year.
That's right. And a very, very sexy young David Morrissey, who I did not know was such a Twinkie delight in his early 20s.
He's one of the Drownies.
Yeah, he's Jolie's husband. He later plays Hilary Dupre's husband in Hilary and Jackie.
You don't think he looks a bit like the crab face in Secrets and Lies?
Oh no, but listen, it's a long shot most of the time, and he's got a great body, so I don't really care. But yeah, and he's also in Basic Instinct 2.
Thank you for doing the work, Bill.
Yeah.
Did you find it, by the way?
Best Artistic Contribution.
There it is.
Yeah.
This is my first experience with Greenaway.
Oh.
I've still to see The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, Her Lover. I haven't yet because I watch movies like this. This was a frustrating experience, if I may say so. I wanted to admire it, but I felt like it's something I'm supposed to like and don't.
Oh yeah, and that's how I feel about a lot of his movies. However, I don't write Greenaway off. Some of his movies are tiresome. I love A Zed and Two Knots. That's my favorite. I love that movie. The first time I saw it was in a theater and I was blown away. And I like The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover as well. He is a visual artist who becomes a filmmaker. He's a painter, I believe.
Okay.
And much like the other painters who became filmmakers, Derek Jarman, Isaac Julian, yes, and but it's specifically British, like Thatcher era painters. Steve McQueen is a lot later, but he's also one as well. Greenaway and Jarman kind of remind me of each other, which is that the visual takes precedence, and too bad if you find it hard to sit through. But the visual is really, really impressive. That said, the anti-Thatcher artistry of the 80s, despite the fact that I'm politically on their side, I find a lot of it really such downers to sit through, emphasizing like the ugly underside of images, the rot of suburbia kind of thing. Greenaway, usually though, his movies are these really impressive repetitions of visual motifs. Everything's tableau in motion, where it doesn't matter that there isn't much of a plot. And in this film, along with his visual power, comes these, for him, surprisingly lengthy scenes of great actors having lengthy conversations. And that's kind of what makes it a chore to sit through, because they're doing a great job, but like, who cares? He does the thing he usually does, which is setting up, he's fascinated by like binary images, like pairs and multiples, the fact that it's 3 women, they all have the same name, they all have a husband, they all drown their husbands, and like motifs, like I said. As sort of that's how his imagination explores things in a thematic, completely unrealistic way, and that's great. So then, why do you have us discussing things as if you're Harold Pinter? Like, there's just he goes further afield from what he usually does, and it doesn't quite work. There are a lot of striking images in this movie, but I've seen it twice now, and it is hard to sit through. Worth mentioning, the production design is by Jan Rolfs and Ben van Os, who in a few years would get Oscar nominations for Sally Potter's Orlando. And the cinematography is by
see
the
that.
great Sacha Vierny, who would also do The Man Who Cried by Sally Potter. And the music is, of course, by Michael Nyman.
I found the movie. This is probably his intentions, so I can't really say it to discredit him, but I found it really ugly.
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole
His
thing made me
movies
feel like I was
do
getting
have
tetanus.
a striking ugliness to them now.
Like bathing in dirty water with apples in it. Jesus Christ. I look forward to watching the Draftman's contract and the cook.
Yeah, I like that one
Just
too.
Wipe Her Lover.
That was the movie that my Dangerous Liaisons director was inspired by more than the film of Dangerous Liaisons when we did that play.
Returning to the festival, we have István Szabó from Hungary with Hanussen, which is a co-production between Hungary, West Germany, and Austria. Szabó had been here before with Budapest Tales in 1977. He would be back again in 1981 with Mephisto, which would go on to win the Foreign Language Film Oscar. And then he'd be back one more time before this outing with Colonel Redl from 1985.
You don't know what a colonel is?
Well, there's an L after the D. Do I have to say it like a German person, or do I say one word in English and the other one in German?
Do you wash fruit before you eat it, or?
This is another collaboration between Szabó and Klaus Maria Brandauer.
Yeah, those previous two films, which are also World War II movies, they forms kind of a trilogy, and all three were nominated for Best Foreign Film at the Oscars as well.
Both director and actor had a really good decade. Klaus Maria Brandauer would get an Oscar nomination himself for supporting actor for Out of Africa.
Yeah. Do you find him sexy?
No. Yeah. Jesus Lord, no.
I'm just curious because you do kind of like a bullish type every once in a while.
Yeah, no. When Mike and I were in Berlin, we created a binary for judging all ethnic Germans. They were either Mats Hummels or Thomas Müller. I'm into Mats Hummels, tall, heavy eyebrow ridge.
Who are these people?
Soccer players.
Oh, great.
And then the other ones are the fair-haired, bullish types.
Right.
You're right. There's always an exception, but it proves the rule, and I'm not into this guy. But how about you?
No, I'm not either, but I can tell why he's irresistible to women. There's a rascaliness to him that I could see, that like there's a mischief in his eye always, that I could see why he wins people over.
Jack Nicholson.
Yes, although more impish, but yeah.
But it's the same vibe. He fingers you under the table at dinner.
Yes, absolutely.
My review of this movie, in short, is it's a very watchable wartime thriller.
Yeah.
And its overtness and lack of subtlety, nothing is subtextual, is excused by the fact that it is a genre movie.
Yeah. Including the fact that there's a character named Henny Stahl, clearly based on Leni Riefenstahl.
I know.
I am a filmmaker and I love Hitler.
I know. Couldn't see that one from a mile away.
Yeah.
You could easily picture this being adapted into a Hollywood movie a few years later.
Sure.
Starring, whoever's famous at that time. Richard
and he's
Gere.
and he's a real person. He was a real person. He was a mentalist who wowed all of Europe and saw the future, except where it concerned himself and his future with the Nazis. It's also inspired by his own autobiography. Obviously not the ending, but a lot of it is. And I wonder if the film takes his claims about his powers with a bit too few grains of salt. This movie doesn't question his abilities in any way. I don't really mind that too much. I think the only thing that might... I think this is a good movie. I don't know that it's a great movie, but I think it's a solid movie.
Same.
But given that there is this theme of this, this brutal regime that takes over the world and destroys the world so that even someone like him with his magical power is vulnerable to them, I wonder if that could have been explored a little bit more, especially his sort of date with destiny that we reach by the end. That feels a little bit like it comes out of nowhere for me.
You're right. There could have been a couple of dreamlike flourishes in exploring that. Do you think this movie is known or is a citation for American movies to come, like The Prestige, Nightmare Alley, The Illusionist?
I wonder. I don't know.
Yeah, because I can't see it referenced in those movies, but
I've never known it to be that well known. Like, I watched it many years ago because it was nominated for an Oscar, and I found a video cassette of it at the library. So it was long enough ago that the library still had video cassettes.
The VHS of Mephisto at my local library used to scare me.
Oh, it's a scary cover. Yeah, that's a really good movie.
It's been forever since I've seen it.
Yeah. Since your parents rented it for you so that you would never sleep.
Also in competition, we have a sequel.
Or, as Madonna would call it, a sequel.
A sequel. I can't judge her. You've heard my pronunciation of words today.
Sure have.
El Lute dos, Mañana seré libre by Vicente Aranda.
Or as he's known at home in Spain, Vicente.
Vicente Aranda from España. El Lute 2, or Tomorrow I'll Be Free. This is a sequel to El Lute Camina o Revienta, or Run for Your Life. They're both based on the memoirs of Eleuterio Sanchez, who famously escaped prison during Franco and became a bit of a folk hero.
It's a Greek name, Eleftherios. It's my mom's name. Eleftheria. It means freedom.
Oh.
And I had an uncle, Eleftherios, as well. They usually go by Lefteri in Greek.
Cool. So then in Spanish, does the F become a T? Is that
No, it's just, I think they just say Eleuterio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is by no means an artfully crafted movie. It basically looks like Above the Law from the same year.
Totally. And it's a pleasure from beginning to end.
We're on the same page. Yeah. It's ramshackle actually gives it more excitement, to be honest.
Yeah. And at first I was like, should I watch both? Because I haven't seen El Lute 1. And I thought, no, because if it's torture, if it's another CC situation, I'm just going to watch part 2. And if I don't get it, I don't get it. I really enjoyed part 2. I didn't have trouble understanding anything without having watched part 1. And I probably will go back and watch part 1 because I really enjoyed part 2. I've seen a couple of Vicente Aranda's films. I saw Jealousy or Celos at TIFF many years ago in 1999. It was a movie like this one, which is that it was like well shot, very entertaining, wholly engrossing, nothing that I would call great art cinema. I'm curious as to why this movie is in the competition, not because it's not good, but because it just seems very populist. I'm sorry to sound like such a snob. Maybe they asked Spain for a movie and this is what Spain sent. I don't know, but I had a great time. He lays it on a little thick with these like poor villagers who like the brother who doesn't even know what a helicopter is. I mean, okay, but and also this gangster crime lord who's like he's like James Bond, which is that for some reason everyone knows him even though he goes everywhere in disguise. But yeah,
and he's just like James Bond in that a bullet can never kill him.
That's right. He gets shot a lot.
It's shot a lot, and this movie wins the Party City Award for craziest wigs or beard work.
Yeah, that guy's sexy though. He's also the husband in Flower of My Secret.
Yeah, no, he's You just know Pedro's casting guys based on the BDE they give off,
without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got from the United States. And I can't believe we're going to speak so undecorously about a movie with such good ass and jeans quotient.
Yeah.
We've got Miles from Home by Gary Sinise. Sinise is known to most people as Lieutenant Dan, but his place in the Cannes competition 2 times over 5 years is really to his credit as the co-founder of Steppenwolf Company.
That's right.
Which launched the careers of John Malkovich, I Get to Pet the Rabbits, and Laurie Metcalf, and probably some other names I should be mentioning as well.
Yeah.
Sinise would be back again in 1992 with, as I just mentioned, Of Mice and Men. A movie that I was not allowed to stay up and watch with my sister, and it made me give my brother the finger when he taunted me for it, and then I got grounded.
Wow. That was a busy house, man. The mayhem in that house, like the actions you just laid out for me, the fact that from one to the next, each step doesn't make sense. That's what happens when there's 5 kids.
A 6-year-old is crying, having a tantrum because he can't stay up and watch a Gary Sinise
to watch directed. A movie I was forced to read based on a novel I was forced to read in high school and could barely get through. And he's like, no, it's wheat sheaves. You know how much I love wheat sheaves.
I Gotta Pet the Rabbits. Have you seen the SNL parody of Mice and Men?
No.
It's just Chris Farley and John Malkovich accidentally breaking everybody's neck over and over and over.
I mean, I appreciate that John Malkovich is a lot more... he's a lot funnier and more willing to poke fun at himself than he gives off.
Totally.
You know, he's not a pretentious guy,
game.
but he gives a lot of pretentious performances, including in Miles from Home, where he wears the douchiest ponytail known to human history.
No, absolutely. So this movie, it's about two outlaws. These guys whose the glory days of their family farm are gone after they've inherited it. The movie opens with it being visited by I want to say Khrushchev.
Yeah, did that happen?
I don't know.
Like, was there enough of a thaw in the Cold War that Khrushchev came to American farms in the Midwest to vote for one as the farm of all time?
Moving, like, let's not stress ourselves out about this. This movie doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, and an uncredited Brian Dennehy as their dad.
Yes, that's right. These guys have inherited the farm. It's gone the way of everything else in post-industrial America. They're now terribly in debt. Their property's been seized by the bank, and they decide to set the whole thing on fire and then do a bunch of robberies. And they become sort of folk heroes themselves. But very, very locally. Its drama is totally ham-fisted and unbelievable, and the takeaway is Richard Gere's ass and jeans.
It is, although it kind of makes me laugh because everyone is just wearing baggy t-shirts and jeans. His brother is just wearing a normal pair of t-shirt, like a normal pair of jeans and a t-shirt.
Well, he's wearing a hair shirt under his t-shirt.
Right. He's good looking though. I don't know that he's hot, but he's cute.
He is, but you know, when someone has so clearly stopped shaving right here.
That's right, yeah. He's also the guy in Sleeping with the Enemy. He's the guy that she falls in love with in Sleeping with the Enemy, who inspired one of my favorite quotes in a Pauline Kael review. In her last review of all time, actually, which was Sleeping with the Enemy, where she said, "Why do men in the movies always have to burn dinner so that we know they're straight?" So that's him. And he was in a few movies, and he's good in this movie, but it is funny to me that his brother is played by Richard Gere at his most Richard Gere. This is the last time Richard Gere is that hot, too, because Pretty Woman is pretty much right after this. And he's still a handsome man, but he's like for lonely straight women after that point. I don't find him, you know, like he's still
a scented candle. It's a scented candle experience after this.
Yes, that's right. While in this point, he's still a surprisingly heterosexual bottom. And his clothing is ridiculously tight. His t-shirt and his jeans are straining for their fucking lives. That's why I sent you a photo of Mona from Brazil saying that that's what his clothing is doing in this film. Because, like, it's so tight and it's perfect. He wears one white t-shirt throughout this whole film and it stays perfectly clean the entire time.
I know.
This is, I mean, picking our damned door for this year was really hard because we were rich with choices. This is definitely the dumbest movie that played at Cannes, and one of the dumbest I've ever seen for this podcast. It's so fucking stupid. This movie is a great case for how Thelma and Louise could have gone wrong 3 years later, because that's a similar movie and similar story, road trip and all that stuff, and it gets everything right. And this movie gets everything fucking wrong. The women act like morons every time they're on screen. The two women that they're interested in, with the exception of Judith Ivey, who I adore, in her one cameo where she takes one look at Richard Gere and she's like, "You're not leaving here unless you fuck me," which is so great.
Mad respect. Mad respect.
She can barely stop from licking her lips as soon as she looks at him. But this movie is so fucking dumb, and it makes it worse. It comes out in a decade where, along with anti-apartheid movies, we also have a lot of farm dramas being made in the 80s because, of course, artists are reacting to the Reagan years and the economic downturn of the Reagan years and the lie of trickle-down economics. And one of the most emblematic ways to show that is to show the effect that those years had on agriculture in the flyover states. You have probably one of the best of them is Country with Jessica Lange. Not a flawless movie, but a very good one.
Tender Mercies.
Places in the Heart. The River with Sissy Spacek. Like, 3 of them are Best Actress nominees of 1984. So when you have those movies, and then Gary Sinise makes this movie that's pretending to care about this, but is actually just allowing actors to James Dean and be cool for their friends, it just seems like that much more of an insult to an important subject. This movie's so fucking dumb.
It's just put on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, farmers don't look like that. Some of them maybe do. Farmers don't look like Richard Gere, okay? Have you seen the documentary Brothers Keeper? That's what these guys would actually look like.
They, like, the hottest farmers still look like Deliverance.
Well, because they're not concerned with combing their hair. They put a cap on and they go do their work.
Lucky if you get a farmer who looks like Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah. They also don't convince me that they know how to operate that machinery that they're operating.
No.
And then this dumb, like, 1950s method acting storyline of him living under the shadow of his father because his father was really hard on him, and now that his father died and he took over the farm and he failed and it's his fault and he can't be good enough for dad. Like, it's something that Anthony Franciosa would have been in the 50s, and it would have been bad back then, too.
I will say, though, Richard Gere is an actor I respect, like Michael Douglas, and that I think that he needs to be in the hands of a good director because the raw material is always there, but it never turns into a good performance.
Well, and also, I think that his clothing is so tight because he insists on it. Like, I have a feeling that he wants to be a serious actor, but he's not fully willing to let go of the trappings of being a glamorous movie star. Not that I blame him. Richard Gere in the 80s is a smoke show and a half.
I think but even 2 years later when he does Internal Affairs, like he's taking risks that don't totally pay off, but I'm like, a Curtis Hanson could do you right.
Yeah.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got a not great movie that I totally loved.
Mm-hmm.
Pascali's Island by James Dearden.
Yeah.
James Dearden, who's the son of Basil Dearden.
And a year before, was nominated for an Oscar for writing Fatal Attraction.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is also from the UK, like the films of Basil Dearden, and it's an adaptation of some literary source that I assume is Graham Greene meets Le Carré, and it stars an incredible, honestly award-winning Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
As a kind of like, I mean, he reports to the intelligence, but he also is just like a mover and a shaker on the local scene.
Well, I wondered if we were going to find out that the whole thing was a fiction in his mind. I wondered about that. That he's been telling everyone he's like a secret spy for the Ottoman Empire, but that actually he met one diplomat once in Constantinople who said, yeah, you should go there and check things out for us. And he like thinks that he's a top operative, but that it's all in his head. I wondered about that. The movie never proves me wrong in this theory, by the way, even though it doesn't support my theory either.
Yeah, because he's always paranoid. Yeah, it's a very good, it's a very well developed character. Like he's written well and he's acted well.
Yeah,
can't say the same for everybody else. Although What's His Nuts is doing a great job as the villain finding the statue.
Well, yeah, because like, is he a villain? We never really know if he's, because he starts out a charlatan and then he turns out he's a true believer, but like the truth is somewhere in the middle. I love Charles Dance in that performance because, they use his sort of diabolical good looks in favor of the character. Also, I didn't realize he was that fit back then.
What's your review of his hands?
I don't remember them.
Yeah. Because the rest of his body was giving Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, which, I love a man who looks like a golden Oreo, so, yeah. And Helen Mirren is an underwritten part, although I really enjoy her in this film.
Same.
It's, I don't know, it's a fascinating movie. It's filmed in Rhodes, which I am considering visiting when I go to Greece this September. It's an island very far from the mainland of Greece. It's actually, like, you can see Turkey from your house when you're in Rhodes. It's very close to there. Which is also why there is a spy for the Ottoman Empire there. I don't know that it's set in Rhodes, though, because they don't specify the thing. But that part of Turkey and Greece has been contested land until the 20th century and beyond, actually. And then this movie takes place sort of at the end of the empire, which is destroyed by World War I. I think the plot could have been developed a little bit more. I don't know that this movie is like moment to moment fascinating, but I wasn't bored. Like I loved the intrigue of it. And as you say, Ben Kingsley is incredible and I loved hanging off his every word.
And I need to state a bias I have for movies where everybody is in like an off-white or linen.
Yeah.
Like that, like we know, I'm aware Spectre is one of the worst Bond outings,
right.
But for me, like my memory of that movie is just Léa Seydoux in like gorgeous Georgian silks and tan.
Yes, I'm a big fan as well. It's because we love a summer vacation, but it's also terrible because like the colonial look is very appealing to me on an aesthetic level. And were I to live during those times, I'd be like, revolutionaries, my heart is with you, but I don't want to lose this building. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I can join you. Because I'm fine with white people serving me in this tea room, but I need the tea room to stay.
Yeah, I need the tea room. And can we all dress like Ray Fiennes and Kristen Scott Thomas?
Yes, exactly. I'll get the red shawl.
It's a mid to good movie.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that spectrum that I really liked.
And it's intelligent as well.
It is.
Yeah, I just wished it was more absorbing, but it is a smart movie. Because also it's another movie where the ending kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere.
Sneaks up.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was just in heat that day. I was like, Ben Kingsley was really doing it for me.
I could see that.
Yeah. From Paul Schrader, we've got Patty Hearst. Schrader had been here before with his biopic of Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters.
Which I still haven't seen.
And neither have I. It's got a really cool Criterion cover, though. And he'd be back again this past year with a movie where Jacob Elordi and Richard Gere are the same person.
Yeah. I know you shrink with old age, but I don't think you shrink that much. Let's just put it that way.
Canada, do they shrink?
Yeah.
I was shocked by how good this turned out to be because it did not start good.
Correct. I didn't love this movie, but it was better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a filmmaker who started as a critic, Schrader sometimes can't help himself with the formalism.
Yeah.
Like he sometimes, like you can tell he's trying to outdo himself.
Right.
With camera angles and with shadow and with color. But this, honestly, just this whole thing works because of Natasha Richardson.
She's so good. Yeah, I appreciated the formalism of the beginning in terms of like giving us the perspective of what she is imagining everything is while she's blindfolded for all that time.
Yep.
And I appreciate that this movie has a no muss, no fuss approach as well. Because, of course, the question remained for many people, was she a true believer or was she just acting the way she did because she was forced by these people who kidnapped her? Like, did she actually have Stockholm Syndrome and come to accept these people's beliefs, or was she just surviving? You know, we know what happened in the court trial, but that could also be because she spent enough money on her legal case to get off scot-free. And I think she cared about proving herself to people because her reaction to the film was to say it didn't help. She didn't say it was good or bad, but she says, I don't think the film helped. And anyway, I kind of like the ending of this movie where she's like, fuck everybody. I don't care what anyone says. I'm going to do what I need to do to get past this.
Same.
And if anyone doesn't know, it's about Patty Hearst, who was the granddaughter of publishing magnate William Randolph Hearst, who is, of course, the unintended subject of Citizen Kane, who she was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army, which was like 4 people with a plan, and stayed with them long enough that she ended up joining them on their bank robberies and heists and stuff like that, and ended up, once she was liberated, ended up on trial. And insisted that she was just doing what she did to survive. And then after that went on to the greatest achievement that I know her for, which is playing the woman who wears white shoes after Labor Day in Serial Mom, who then gets beaten to death with a public phone, which I think is one of her true legacy.
No, you don't understand. Fashion has changed. Yeah. No, it hasn't.
John Waters loves himself a convicted woman. You know what I mean? He's friends with, and the Manson girls as well that he's friends with. And then more recently, Patty Hearst came to my attention because her son-in-law is that guy Chris Hardwick who does the Nerdist podcast.
Yeah.
He's married to her daughter, and then I don't know if you remember a few years ago, an ex-girlfriend of his wrote an article about an abusive boyfriend that she had, and she didn't name names, but she dropped enough clues that it was easy to put together that it was him. And then the Nerdist dropped him, and then he basically launched an investigation that proved him completely innocent, according to the investigation. And the one thing that people had to say about the investigation is that it was conducted by the firm that is connected to Patty Hearst's family, that is connected to his in-laws' family. So it was all a little bit suspicious. But that's also what I know Patty Hearst for, is that that's her son-in-law, and that she said that his getting fired over an ex-girlfriend's blog post was another example of what she called me-carthyism, which I thought was a witty pun.
That is a witty pun.
Yeah.
That's my favorite pun since I came up with actor holism earlier today.
Yeah, which is not a good one. Anyway, go on. Anyway, but back to the movie Patty Hearst, in which Natasha Richardson plays her flawlessly, even though Natasha Richardson's American accent is the same as her mother's and her sister's. But anyway,
I actually thought I couldn't clock it. I was quite impressed.
Because that's what Patty Hearst sounds like, though. She also has like that finishing school weird Eastern Seaboard Grey Gardens accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How uncomfortable did you feel looking at Ving Rhames' incredible body? He's not someone I need to have an incredible body when he's young.
Yeah, it's true. He's so great in this, and Frances Fisher has always been old.
She's always been 40. She's always been Madam of the Whorehouse.
And the other guy's like a butterface too. There's a guy with like a sexy body and an ugly face in the movie.
Are you talking about William what's his face?
No, that guy. No, the guy from Dick Tracy. No, the other one.
The other one.
Yeah.
One last thing I have to say about this, because I knew about the Symbionese Liberation Army, but I never actually like went deep diving into it. I just kind of knew it like a thumbnail sketch.
Yeah, me too. And then I read up on it, and it's like, these people are nonsense.
I didn't realize they were just like a dorm room debate over and over and over again.
Yeah, I thought it was something along the lines of the PLO, and then I looked them up, and I'm like, oh no, this is nonsense.
Yeah, these are children.
Yeah, it's the Manson family.
What? But like. It's your friends when you in your most radical year. It's the people you hung out with who owned a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook.
Right? Yeah. Totally.
Mike crossed the room and said like, "Oh yeah, I used to hang out with people like that."
Yeah, and to no one's surprise, they're mostly like middle class kids who this was their way of striking out in some way and feeling special.
Totally take down the man.
Yeah.
All right, we've got from New Zealand, from Vincent Ward. A sort of cult movie at this point, The Navigator, a medieval odyssey. And Ward would be back. No, Ward had been here before, I should say, in 1984 with a movie called Vigil.
Yeah.
This movie takes place during the plague, and then in a mix of
in the 14th century Scotland.
And then in a mix between time bandits and adventures in babysitting, a group of peasants follow a boy with clairvoyance into a realm that takes them to present-day Auckland. Yeah, because they don't just travel time, they travel hemispheres.
Yeah, they dig a hole through the earth until they pop up in modern-day New Zealand.
It's impressively made, and I never gave a shit. I do need to take a clip of one of the parts of the movie and send it to all my friends named Connor when a character named Connor arrives on screen and some sea shanty starts that goes... Connor.
This movie hasn't aged well. Vincent Ward in general is a time and place. A very interesting, innovative filmmaker. This movie was a big breakthrough for him. It was a cult hit immediately. And after this, he was hired to direct Alien 3, which was going to be his Hollywood breakthrough. But then he parted ways with the producers after things went awry in terms of. His version was going to be set on a planet made entirely of wood.
Does he have...
I'm not kidding.
Stop! But he still has the writing credit on Alien 3, doesn't he?
Yeah, because I think he got in far enough that he was probably able to argue arbitration with the Writers Guild and maintain credit. The production of Alien 3, though, was a complete disaster from beginning to end. And then, as we know, David Fincher directed it and then ended up wanting to have his name taken off the credits and didn't, but he abandoned the film. He refuses to have anything to do with it since.
How much do you want that documentary?
You get a little bit of information on the box set, but not too much, because he doesn't participate, right? And then, like, the box set that I have of the first 4 Alien movies is, like, director's cut, producer's cut, director's cut. So that's also why. Anyway, I first saw The Navigator when I worked at Rogers Video, so it's been a while, because I was a teenager, and I remember thinking it was kick-ass amazing. And watching it again, I still really admire it, but, it hasn't aged super well. I'd completely forgotten that the whole thing more or less ends up being a dream at the end. I believe Vincent Ward is a very big fan of The Wizard of Oz, and this movie takes a lot of cues from that film. I think it's interesting. I think it's a great setup and achieves a lot on a very small budget. But I think your assessment of the Connor clip it covers a lot in terms of this movie. And again, another one that I was glad to revisit. There's a shocking amount of movies in this competition this year that are movies that I haven't seen in minimum 30 years. Wow. So I was happy to revisit them. But I'm also happy to leave this one where I found it.
And then our last movie in our list of also-rans, before we get to our Dans and our Palm, is an adaptation of Wuthering Heights, Arashi ga Oka, by Yoshishige Yoshida. I never appreciated reading Wuthering Heights how early Catherine dies.
Yeah, because most adaptations are just about her and Heathcliff, and the novel is actually half that, and then the other half is their children and their relationship, and how basically the chickens come home to roost in that part of the plot. Have you read that book?
Oh, it's my favorite book.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I haven't read it since I was 19.
It is an incredible book. Despite the fact that I did an English specialist degree, for some reason I never studied it in 10 years of whatever I was in university. I read it after. I'm a huge Bronte lover because I've read Jane Eyre like 15 times, which is Charlotte Bronte. Emily Bronte writes Wuthering Heights. It is a novel frequently misunderstood as a dark romance, which is why also I find a lot of people tell me they hate it, and it's because it's been sold to them as a romance. It's not a romance. And this film is Japanese, and I think it captures a lot of the themes of the book really well, including the fact that Heathcliff is a demon out to devour everything around him. He's full of hate because he's been treated so badly, and the only grace he ever got was from Kathy, but it was always an unsure kindness that he got from her that was always undone by everything around them. And then the fact that she grew up to be kind of wispy and not very not super devoted in any way, and so it just makes him want and it makes him want to be even more destructive. It's one of the very few novels of the period that has no talk of God or religion, which is a big part of English literature of the time. And I feel that that's intentional. I think it's a story that takes place outside of God's kingdom. We only really venture between one farm and another in that entire book, because it doesn't take place in the known world. And so I find that a lot of film adaptations get it wrong. They always sell gorgeous people falling in love. And this film actually, I feel like, got a lot of things right. That said, I still found it kind of boring to sit through after a while, but, whatever, it was good.
It's handsome. It clearly is the heir to Kobayashi, Kurosawa, Teshigahara.
Yeah. But it's not as good. I mean, Kurosawa adapted Western literature a lot, and it's not as good as his adaptations.
Well, because when masters do slow, it's meditative. And when this guy does it, it's sleepy.
Yeah, it's just slow. Yeah.
Yeah. We mentioned a lot of movies we did not think were really good, and yet none of them won our Dans. And on top of that, you and I didn't even have the same Dans d'Or.
I know.
Won't you start us off, Bill? What movie would you give the Dans d'Or to?
My Dans d'Or goes to the other colonial film that Carrie Rickey also pointed out was the worst of the colonial films, and which she thought was the worst of the bunch, which is El Dorado by Carlos Saura. I like Carlos Saura. He goes back and forth, but I don't remember the last time I disliked a movie this much. This movie it makes mention at the beginning of it being like the 400 years of colonialism. I don't know if we're celebrating that. I don't know if we're celebrating Spanish Catholics going into the jungle and killing everyone for fun, but in the 1980s, I guess it's been like, when does this take place? It's in the 16th century?
Ooh, don't ask me.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is about the search for El Dorado, the men who go into the jungle believing that there is a place made entirely of gold that will be the glory of the Spanish Empire. It's a movie that uses the word arquebus many times, and I didn't even know what that word was. It's a musket. It's men yelling in tents for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It has
or dying of malaria.
Yeah, it has Aguirre as a character, which only reminds us of Werner Herzog's Aguirre, the Wrath of God, made 10 years earlier, which is a less factual version of this story, but a hell of a lot more interesting and exciting and memorable.
Well, and so is Fitzcarraldo, if we're going to talk about the same plot line.
Absolutely. Carrie Rickey called this movie airless and brutal, and she's not wrong. It is a chore to sit through. And the reason I chose it, I think that the movie you chose is about as bad. I think other movies in this competition are as bad. But this was the one where I kept checking the time the most and being like, oh my God, there's still an hour and a half. Oh my God, there's still... And this is a movie that has Lambert Wilson shirtless.
Oh, yeah.
And
giving like hung as a donkey nose energy.
Yes. Although he dies 50 minutes into the film.
Yeah.
And it's not his voice too, because he's dubbed in Spanish, but because it's a French co-pro. But yeah, this movie was an absolute chore to sit through. And that's also amazing considering the photography is gorgeous. They go genuinely into the jungle to film everything. And I'm sure all the actors were getting no end of bug bites for the 3 months that they were there. And it's still fucking boring.
And there's a good thrilling set piece or two, but it's a slog. And I think a testament to what you've just said is the fact that I watched this movie over 2 bus trips and then at home and passed out and woke up and then it still finished it. So it's one of the longest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
In spirit.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that the Canopy's version of it is like not nicely formatted.
No.
But because Canopy usually is way better than Hoopla in terms of giving you great resolution on the films they've gone on there. So that was a shame.
Carlos Saura is going to show up a lot on this podcast. He'd been here before in 1960 with The Delinquents. We weren't able to find it for that episode.
Right.
Anna and the Wolves, which we'll be talking about in our next episode. Cousin Angelica in 1974. His best movie for my money, most people's, Cria Cuervos from 1976.
Love it.
Elisa, My Life from 1977. Blindfolded Eyes from 1978. And Carmen from 1983.
Which is also great.
Until Loach and Moretti, he, for a number of decades, had the record for the most outings in competition.
Oh, okay.
If I recall correctly.
Yeah. And he died when? Not long ago. I feel like it was in the last couple of years.
And he was the life partner of one of our goddesses, Geraldine Chaplin.
Geraldine Chaplin.
Which makes him a son-in-law of a master.
That's right. And another case of like someone I love seeing like I love watching Geraldine Chaplin interviewed, talking about him and talking about working with him.
Yeah, it's similar to
Liv Ullmann.
Well, or our other favorite, talking about my mother,
Ingrid Bergman.
Great choice for the dance. Very well defended. I'm still going to give it to L'Oeuvre au Noir by André Delvaux. This is a co-production between France and Belgium. Delvaux had been here before in 1973 with Belle and again in 1979 with Women in a Twilight Garden. I just don't understand how he fucked this up. Enough movies about religious persecution of liberal renegades, of heretics, have been made that he could have just been lazy and still entertained us. But somehow he made something that looks strained and is still boring. It
is boring. It's based on a novel by Marguerite Yourcenar, who also wrote the book that Coup de Grace is based on, a Volker Schlondorf film. Oh. And she's like the Simone de Beauvoir of Belgium. She's a very, very highly regarded, philosophically minded literary author. So I imagine that this movie, among some circles, would have been greeted with a great deal of anticipation and respect. But it's a movie about the Spanish Inquisition where we just watch a guy sitting by the fireplace for 2.5 hours. Like, it's really fucking boring. And a pretty impressive cast, too. Like, Anna Karina is in this movie, and Gian Maria Volonté, and, so many cool people. But fuck my life, it is boring.
Yeah, the whole thing was monotonous. I don't recall it breaking a second level once.
Yeah.
And now on to discussion of our Palme d'Or winner.
Ja, det är stor skillnad på det landet du kommer till.
Jeg vil give dig festen for 100 kroner om året. Og drengen følger med. Det er der, I skal bo.
Oh my god! And you wrote down the Danish too, so I get to practice pronouncing it for our listeners. Pelle The by Bil August from Denmark, co-production with Sweden.
Yep.
This movie is, I like how you put it, it's a staple of the 1980s, a foreign film about suffering.
Yep.
It would go on to great acclaim. It won the Best Foreign Language Film Award from the Oscars in 1989, winning in a category that included, as we just mentioned, Salam Bombay, Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, and Hanussen by István Szabó. Miramax had distributed this movie and took it to the Oscars, which probably contributed to it winning, but we wouldn't want to give them too much credit. It's also one of the better movies of this whole bunch.
Oh yeah,
and it looks like a Cannes movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are moments of imagery in this movie that are breathtaking, for sure.
Promotion for the movie included a poster with a woman's naked back on it, even though the woman who's portrayed is barely in the movie. And thanks for including that in the outline, Bill, that Weinstein had already been assaulting women at this point.
Well, because it's like, according to the book I was reading, it was saying that this was his first major taste of the Oscars, bringing a movie that he distributed to the Academy Awards and winning.
That's right, because it's the year before Soderbergh.
That's right. And then this is at a time when he was already, having this... I shouldn't say having this problem. It wasn't his problem. It was everybody else's problem to deal with him. But yeah, he was already assaulting women at this point. This is also one of 7 Palme d'Or winners to win the Best Foreign Film Oscar. This is the 5th of them. After it are, of course, Amour and Parasite. This is the first one since The Tin Drum. This is one of 2 times that Billy August is in competition, and he won the Palme d'Or both times. He's one of how many? 9 filmmakers who have 2 Palme d'Ors?
It's a short list. It's a single digit.
But it's 8 times because 2 of them are the Dearden brothers. So 8 times there have been... And he's also one of the few... It's only him, Mikhail Haneke, and Ruben Östlund who won 2 Palme d'Ors for 2 films in a row in their filmography.
Oh wow. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that you've included... Per tradition at this point, a quote from Michael Guibert, his observation that the movie always takes the option that produces the most hardship for the characters. So, like, all of it looks really good. All of it is really well crafted, well acted. Everything is top rate except for the central material. Yeah,
I mean, I hadn't watched it in a very long time, so I didn't remember. I remembered basic things, but I didn't remember exactly how everything went and how it ended. But I'm pretty sure both times I watched it, I kind of knew where things were going to go because I knew not to have hope. Because these people are eating mud for lunch, so nothing's going to go well. I know that it's a film about the labor exploitation. It is much to Max von Sydow's credit that he makes the character so bleeding heart sympathetic, given that he's so pathetic. He's obviously not very bright. I want to know more about this history of, like, Swedes coming to Denmark to find work. Like, what's going on in Sweden that... and I mean that genuinely, aside from the fact that white-on-white racism is hilarious. Like, the way
Can I tell you what Mike said when Mike crossed the room? He goes, wait, is this about persecution of Swedes in Denmark? Yeah. Well, that's stupid.
I know, but it's fun. It's kind of funny, when you think about it. But there is and much more recently, Susanna Bier made the movie In a Better World, which is about a Swedish family who come to live in Denmark in present day, and they're treated like shit. So this whole idea of, I guess Danes consider themselves like the city cousin, and the Swedes are like the country cousins that they look down on.
Well, and I know you don't have to stretch your imagination because, Greeks have been deracialized since, like, the 1980s, but, like, that was not your ancestors' experience of living in this country.
Correct, absolutely. Yeah. Ideas of whiteness change over time, even though ideas of blackness do not. So I get that. I'm curious to know specifically the economic circumstances under which boatloads of Swedes are coming to Denmark to find work, given that they're working, as shitty laborers at farms. And it's just like, why can't you suffer that much at home? Well, and I mean that genuinely. Like, I don't know this period of history.
It really could just be, though, that, like, the economic stakes are even worse back home. Like, think about all of the...
I mean, I'm assuming that's the case. I'm just curious about the details. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you think about all the people who come from the Caribbean to farm our local berries. Like, it's painstaking.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Max von Sydow also breaks my heart in this movie. He looks a lot like my dad. He has the same facial structure and everything. So to think of my dad that vulnerable really hurts. He has the same bearing, the way he stands and everything. So that's also very tender. And Pelle looks a little bit like I did at that age as well, like fair-haired and...
Like Ambeth Davids?
Like, hopeful for the future. Yeah, absolutely. The kid that plays him, his real name is Pelle because he was named after the novel that this is based on. The novel is basically Denmark's Les Miserables.
It's their Pippi Longstocking.
Thank you for keeping it high. So I just know, like, as soon as he gets off the boat and he says, I'm not going to take the first job that comes, I'm going to wait till I get a good one, and I know right away he's going to get something shit. I know when the guy picks him up, taking him to the farm, it's going to be hell on earth. I know that once the girl falls in love with a guy and she gets pregnant, that she's going to get pregnant, and that she's going to either, do something crazy to miscarry or run away with. Like, it's all, you can just feel everything is going to go the way of tragedy. It doesn't feel quite as manipulated the way Michael Gebert says, but it feels manipulated enough for me to grow a little bit impatience with the misery of this movie. But because it has a sort of gentle rhythm to it, I don't know that I necessarily mind. I just know that watching it twice was more than enough, and I don't need to do it again.
Yeah, and this is after we've seen Torment. This is after we've seen the 400 Blows. Like, the tortures of childhood is well-traveled territory.
Yeah.
And the brutality towards immigrants is also well-traveled territory, although it was novel for me to see it in this cultural context.
Sure. But that didn't make it any less familiar. His
didn't make it
spirited friend on the farm who keeps saying, we're going to go to America, and to a place he refers to as Negroland.
Yes.
I said,
which, by the way, has a hyperlink on Wikipedia.
That's amazing. And I knew, like, as soon as he said it, I'm like, he's not going to go to America. He's going to end up dying on the farm. And he ends up even worse. He ends up being brained and debilitated.
Yeah.
You know. And I knew as soon as he was trying to attack the farmer with the thing, I said, something's gonna, you know, the setup of the fulcrum of the well and everything. It all feels, it does feel in some way calculated.
It is. It is it's almost like the perfect cliche of European art cinema. Like,
yes.
It's like this, like movies that are about, like virtuous, sometimes dopey, sometimes naive characters who everybody preys upon, economically, maybe even violently.
Yeah.
Like La Strada.
Yeah.
Tons of Italian neorealism. The example I just mentioned by Truffaut. There's something easy about it, but what this movie pulls off is it dresses it up in a really nice suit.
It does. It also feels like it knows. It feels like it's well aware of the fact that it's setting you up for shit. Like, it's setting you up for tragedy. And so it doesn't feel fully manipulative. It doesn't feel like it's insulting me in any way. Biliaga says, sit down and let me tell you a sad story about humans at their absolute worst, where everything goes wrong. And so I don't feel insulted by this movie. And like I said, the imagery, I mean, that sequence of the sinking boat, the Finnish boat, is incredible. The imagery that we get from that section.
Oh yeah, no, and like the frozen bodies, like I don't know what the budget is of this movie, but it looks expensive.
Oh yeah,
and that's impressive to me.
And there's also something self-aware again about the way he presents it, as like God himself is against these people. You know, that it's not just me as a storyteller. The world is just, like the fact that Eric gets brained when he's attacking the farmer, justifiably for being exploited, is like, fate itself is against these people. So there is an attempt to make it into some kind of like tragic opera, almost in a way, where the fact that you know what's going to happen is part of it. But again, it doesn't make it easier to sit through.
But in that regard, it has a lot in common with Wuthering Heights, which is like your fates are basically decided as soon as you're born.
Yeah.
Something that this movie also has in common with the Japanese adaptation of Wuthering Heights is gigantic newborn babies. So this is a nitpick I'll make about movies a lot. If it comes up in this pod, you're going to be hearing about it.
Yeah.
These babies are rupturing pelvises. I know a lot of women die in childbirth. I don't think they're dying in childbirth because of babies that are this big, or else they would be exploding.
But also, you give birth to a baby, you don't want it because it's going to ruin everyone's life, so you decide to
drop
kill
it in the shallow end?
The shallow, she dropped it in like the edge of a pond. It's just there.
I was just like, I know you're not responsible for your plight. I know the rich man who knocked you up should have taken responsibility for this and called someone down the road. But you stupid bitch.
I know. It's because they can't swim. That's why. If she could swim, you know, these people can't read. She can't swim, so she can't swim out to the middle of the pond and drop it in the deep.
Okay. No. Bill, this is what you do. You chuck it far.
Oh, it's a baby.
You throw it like a fucking rugby ball.
Yeah.
You give it one big swing,
yeah.
and then maybe people for a moment look over at you, and you'll just be like, "Oh, that wasn't me. A duck flew away." That's all you gotta do.
This plot point of this woman having this baby is, of course, revealing hypocrisy in the way that the girl with the needle did more recently, which is that, like, you know, you're judging her for killing a baby, but the circumstances under which she had to kill the baby are also the ones you created. So why is suddenly she a bad person when you made it impossible for her? It would have been hard, but she could have just had the baby and taken care of it while doing her farm work. Plenty of other people have. It's just she wasn't married to the guy. And so... that's why, you know, that's a, you know, important. But yeah, again, this is a movie about simple, vulnerable people, as you say. His idea of the perfect life is raisins in the roast pork and a coffee in bed on a Sunday morning. This was like one of the first times I remember watching the Oscars, and I remember seeing a clip from this movie and thinking, oh my God, I have to see that. Because... period movies about suffering are the sick soul of European party movies of the 1980s. Period movies about suffering were the thing. It's how you proved you were a good person. So I remember being really big on seeing this film.
Wait, is this the year of the Rob Lowe dance?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's the year. Also brings Max von Sydow to the Oscars for the first time. He receives his first Oscar nomination as Best Actor. Of two, yeah. And he was also cited in the Palme d'Or. The Palme d'Or citation included a mention of Max von Sydow for his exceptional performance. He's only 58 when he shoots this movie.
Well, that's because he's always been 58.
He's always been 58, I know. And then Ingmar Bergman...
so young in The Exorcist. Like, he's incredibly young in The Exorcist.
That's like 15 years before this. And then, as I said, Billy August won a second Palme for The Best Intentions, which is a film written by Ingmar Bergman when he wasn't done writing films, but he was done directing them. And the reason why he hired Billy August, he said, is because he saw Pelle the Conqueror 7 times, and it was what inspired him to choose him to direct his script. Billy August went on to a much less successful Hollywood career after this. He had, after The Best Intentions, he had The Disaster of the House of the Spirits. He's the only director that I've covered on both Riviera Rats and the Bad Gay Movies podcast. And then he went on to direct Smila's Sense of Snow, which was an enjoyable movie. And then I haven't watched anything he's done since then, but as far as I know, he's still working.
Max von Sydow is somebody who grows warmer with age. I look on him affectionately as he gets older, whereas in his earlier movies, he's so severe.
Yeah, he doesn't look like my dad when he's young.
No,
my dad was not glacial looking, and he didn't have those cum gutters that he had in The Virgin Spring. I was about to
mention the cum gutters. But yeah, it's like the least... He's the least fuckable, most formally beautiful person when he's younger.
Yeah.
And then something happens where he becomes his... You know, the wrinkles set in. He has a world weariness.
Yeah.
And you feel safe with him and he's on screen.
I know, and you get the sense in the way he plays this man that he never really believes things are going to be okay. But he also has this child that he has to stay relatively positive for. It's the affection between them is really quite potent. Mm-hmm. And then it causes a great deal of confusion in the young man, who at the end realizes he just has to cut ties with the one thing that he loves the most in order to make sense of the world by discovering it on his own. This is a movie based on a novel published in 4 volumes. So it's only based on a part of it. And Billy August said that his greatest regret is that he never made a sequel because it was planned, but the finances never came together.
I'm okay with what we got.
I am too, but yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to go watch all of the Anne of Green Gables books? Like, they've been adapted many.
Of course I am. Are you insane?
Do you have anything else you want to say about this, or do you want to...
No, just like again, thematically, this movie is interesting, but also a little bit overripe. He trades his coin for the right to beat his friend with nettles because humans are obsessed with the right to have power over each other. You know, the metaphor is a bit overdone in this movie, but at the end of the day, I do have a more positive... So what, sorry?
It's an effective scene.
Yeah. With his friend Ruth. Stick your tongue out and say Ruth. What a elegant language. Anyway, and also the sequence of the crazy farm wife cutting her husband's dick off, and it's the first thing that makes her not cry every night, which is hilarious. At the end of the day, I walk away with a more positive than negative feeling about this movie, but as I texted you, I try to imagine how hot a guy would have to be for me to sit through this movie a third time simply for the promise of sex afterwards, and I can't imagine how hot the guy would have to be.
I think this movie is a fine Palme d'Or winner. I'm okay with it.
It certainly makes the most sense of the bunch.
Yeah, it makes the most sense of the bunch. It's palm-sized for sure.
Yeah,
and I feel warm towards it. It's just not breaking the mold at all.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. But is there another movie in the competition you would rather have given the Palme to?
Yes, I mean, it's not much of a contest. I can understand that Claire Denis' Chocolat was not appreciated in its time for its qualities, but it's definitely the movie from this bunch that I would give the Palme d'Or to. It's not palm-sized, but it's an advance in the art of cinema and the birth of an incredible career. I think it should have happened. I think it's insane that she didn't walk away with any prize at all. But
any prize at all?
Yeah, I would have given it. And actually, the clip, I don't know if you watched the clip that I sent you that covered the winners of the festival from that year. And the commentator at the end, after announcing everybody, had a piece of chocolate in his hand. And he basically said, since Chocolat didn't win anything, I'm just going to enjoy a piece of Chocolat. Like he threw in his personal opinion that he was upset that it didn't win. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even about the size and scope of the film, I know it is a small movie. It shows its budget, but it's just the best of the bunch, and it bites off and chews what it sets out to do.
Yeah,
and it's the one I could see myself rewatching it like this year. I loved it that much.
Yeah.
Is there any movie from 1988 that not in this competition that you would give the Palme to, Bill?
Yes. Well, we briefly touched on it earlier when you decided to predict my opinion, and of course, actually, there's a few to choose from this year. There's quite a few 5-star movies that I love from 1988. But ultimately, I decided to go with Distant Voices, Still Lives by Terence Davies, his first feature. He would go on to make many a feature that I loved. I'm not joking when I tell you that I would love for The Long Day Closes to be playing while I die someday. Hopefully in the future. And
I can arrange that soon if you would like.
I love Terence Davies as if he's someone that I love dearly personally. I mean, I didn't grow up in post-war England. I have no connection with that world, and yet there's something about him that lives directly in my heart. Maybe because he's a fellow frustrated queer. I don't know. And of course, we lost him last year or the year before, which devastated me because he was still making movies and I was still excited about him making movies. Distant Voices Still Lives is an incredible feature debut. It actually goes hand in hand with The Long Day Closes. They are two parts of a whole made up of basically recreations of his memories of growing up in post-war England. Long Day Closes is a lot more of a mosaic. Distant Voices Still Lives, not so much, but they're both incredible movies, and I just can't recommend it enough.
I still need to see it. I look forward to watching it. I got a taste of his version, his sort of nostalgia with his documentary of Time in the City. So that got me excited to explore more of his work.
Yeah. What would you pick, Greg?
You know, it's interesting. The late 80s to me seems, we're going to find out when we do, 87, 89, but the late 80s to me seems like a low point for the Cannes Film Festival and maybe for world cinema at large. Like 1988 is when world cinema is not the best of the bunch. And actually the best of the bunch is all genre movies, especially Hollywood movies. The screwball comedy is back. The expensive comedy is in its heyday.
Yeah.
The best of action cinema is coming out. With that in mind,
there's a lot of frustration of funding in European, like international cinema. And Kieslowski said that it was one of the things that inspired Double Life of Veronique is the fact that, like, looking around him, the movies, and when you look at film festival selections from that period, it's slim pickings.
Yeah, I've heard the mermaids singing. But the movie I would give my palm to is a genre movie that is still a foreign language film. And it's not palm-sized, but it's just one of my 3 favorite movies ever. And it's Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown.
A good choice.
Yeah, endlessly rewatchable. It begins and ends in the blink of an eye. Carmen Mora's performance in it is one of my favorite performances ever. All the more so because she's got that blunt bob and that tweed suit.
So great. La abogada feminista. No eres una feminista, eres una puta.
Do you know how to recite her entire list of the ingredients in the gazpacho?
I just remember cebolla, because I love that word. It's onion. Yeah, but yeah.
And, you know, the movie I have a sentimental attachment to it because in our friend circle, our Almodovar friend circle, you tell me that I am the character who sleeps
the
with
Shiite,
the Shiite terrorists.
Yeah. Who's too stupid not to fall over a balcony. Yeah.
Yeah, and wears Bauhaus espresso makers for earrings.
It is a flawless film. It is I love all Almodovar even when he's bad, because he's another one that lives directly in my heart. You know, you and I went to a couple of his early films last year, and anything bad you can say about them is absolutely true. But you do see the development of an artist. He becomes a genuine storyteller with What Have I Done to Deserve This? And it just keeps getting better. Law of Desire is the biggest hit of the year in 1987 in Spain, which is also why the guy from that is in El Dorado. Mm-hmm. And then Women on the Verge is like everything coming together, the artful storytelling, like the precision of the script, as well as the imagery, the fact that everything's so beautiful and colorful, but it doesn't detract. And the fact that all these characters are individual and interesting. These women are all fascinating and three-dimensional and, you know, strong and pathetic and everything in between, as well as the filmic references, like having shots from Mildred Pierce and Johnny Guitar in the film. Is it Mildred Pierce? What's the other Joan Crawford movie? It's Johnny Guitar, but there's something else. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And all of this as the result of the fact that he sat down to write an adaptation of Jean Cocteau's The Human Voice and realized he couldn't adapt it into a feature because it wasn't very long, and it became Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown in the process, and of course he ended up making The Human Voice many years later.
Well, Bill, this has been another fun 2.5 hours.
2.5 freaking hours. Let's see what I can cut it down to, Greg.
Tell our listeners what we're doing next.
Yes, absolutely. We're doing the year 2009, where it's all Isabel watch, because Isabel is watching, and we're going to talk about Mikhail Haneke's First of Two Palms, another double palmer right after, which is when he won for The White Ribbon.
Get your broken glass.
See you then.
See you then. Thank you for listening to Riviera Rats.
Our podcast is hosted and produced by Bill Antoniou and Gregory Roseborough.
Our music is by Joe Organ.
Our artwork is by Leo Kuvaris.
Follow us on Instagram at Riviera Rats.
Write to us at ratsriviera@gmail.com.
If you want to support our show, tell your friends about us.
Leave us a rating and a review on whatever podcast app you use.